Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the 2023 verdict. We're coming to you live from Channels Television. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
We still have the accurate timekeepers in the house. I'm sure they'll be letting us know what today's date is, perhaps how many days we have to the elections. For us women, more importantly, how many days to Valentine's. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Wow, Mr. Ogun has some work to do on February the 14th. Well, good morning and welcome. It's the 2023 verdict. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo.
I suspect you're talking about Mr. Yusuf right there. Anyway, Markwe, it's about 4 days to Valentine and about 15 days to the elections. Today is February 10. Okay. Incidentally, it's my brother's birthday. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Okay, so in addition to the timekeeping, there's also good name keeping. So I think that's pretty important as well. Nice one, Aya. But we have to remind you all, don't forget, you can get across to us, get your voices heard on the social media handles. You will see all of that 2023 verdict. We're also keeping tabs on your regular one, the Sunrise Daily handle as well. We will take your comments when you do send them there. Yes, we do recognize and still do and will do that, those handles as it were. So get across to any one of us on any of these handles that you see right there. So there you go. How many days now? 15 days to the big one, the presidential and National Assembly elections. Take a look at that. The clock is ticking for this big elections, the first of them all. At the moment, though, because we hear all sorts of narrative these days in terms of, will it not be on this same day? But this is all we know right now. This, 15 days, the presidential and National Assembly elections for the 25th of February.
Well, we've been assured and reassured again that this date is going to be by the INEC chairman, and we hold on to his word. I recall that on Wednesday he had briefed the Federal Executive Council meeting. Today he's set to brief the Council of State as well. The president convened a Council of State meeting which should be happening today, and I'm sure that we'll get even firmer assurances that this date, which we see behind us, 15 days, February the 25th is going to mark the start of the polls, and it's going to be starting with the presidential elections, presidential, senatorial, and House of Reps elections. And much later, I think about a week or 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, we're going to be seeing the governorship and the state houses of assembly elections as well.
So that is what it is at the moment, but it is because of this date that the campaign train of different political parties are going on. So on our news today, Labour Party, they have touched down in Lagos. They're going to have what they call the mega rally taking place in Lagos. They've got all sorts of sessions lined up for that rally tomorrow. So it is, according to them, they want to make it big. They want to get their voices heard in Lagos, and they've got quite a number of sessions lined up actually. So in that particular one, it's the Obi Dati Lagos Mega Rally. That is how they have scheduled it tomorrow. So they've got J Martins, African China, P Square. They will all be grazing TBS Lagos on Saturday for their big campaign tomorrow.
Well, for those who will be going for the rally, please do this safely. And for those who will be, maybe minding their business on that day, plan your itinerary very carefully, because Lagos and traffic, at least we told you that the mega rally is happening in TBS, so you know how to plan your journey around Lagos. I also imagine that, in show of tolerance, that Lagos State authorities will ensure that all of the states, government institutions are on hand to help ensure that everything is orderly on that particular day. Look at this. You also have the APC campaign train holding its parley with stakeholders across the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. You find that this is what they are doing, perhaps taking a break from the rally and holding meetings with their stakeholders across the 6 geopolitical zones?
Right now, another thing that is most certain to make the news today would be the National Youth Council of Nigeria to protest in Abuja over the currency swap. Is that a surprise really to you or to anyone that, you know, the youths are planning to do that? And coming at a time when it's like everyone is protesting one way or the other, only it just depends on how you're executing your protest. There's been a lot of uncoordinated activities along that line in various parts of the country, particularly in some pockets of places in the south of Nigeria, Warri, in Delta State, in Ogun State, in Oyo State, in Ekiti State, you name it. Various parts of the country, all over the place. Those protests have been, but now the National Youth Council of Nigeria is saying that this is what they're going to do, and one wonders how that's going to play out.
And I'm sure they're going to be talking to us about how, you know, the Naira scarcity is affecting their members. But for those who are not protesting, it has emerged, you know, the myriad implications that the scarcity is having on Nigerians across board. And it emerged from our recap, you know, on the news at 10 yesterday in Kano State, following the engagement, you know, with various sections of society. People are talking about how, you know, the scarcity is affecting people at the lower rung of the ladder. You know, for you and I, when we go to the hospital to access our health care, we can't pay with ATMs, you know, with transfers, with POS. But for people who are really poor, they have to access the little health care they can using cash, but there is no cash else anywhere. You know, and from another engagement, it also emerged yesterday that members of the military formations, you know, at the fields, the Naira scarcity is affecting them as well, you know, because they need cash, they need to be liquid in order to access their basic necessities. So has this policy been thought out? I think you and I know the answer to that question. And it emerged also that transfers has hit 38 trillion naira in the last few days owing to the Naira scarcity. But those who can't do transfers, how are they coping at this time?
Even the ones who can do transfer, you listened to our guest yesterday saying that someone that came to work for him didn't get an alert until some 12 hours after. And it's something that I've also experienced when I transferred money to someone and the person didn't receive it until like maybe the following day or something. But hey, you know what? That's not about this. The conversation this morning is not about, you know, the substance of the matter, but the reactions of the National Youth Council of Nigeria, which is likely to happen, which is scheduled to happen in Abuja today. And that's not the only one. There's been a number of protests that's been reported in Abuja about this currency swap. But how that goes will keep you in the loop of that. Chamberlain?
All right, indeed. Let's jump right ahead and take you through some of the dailies. We start with The Guardian here today. And look at this lead. When it came through yesterday, lots of people thought, oh, everything's going to time. What starts has got to end. So look at The Guardian. Buhari prepares for May 29. Sets up Transition Council. So once upon a time, the president was also being prepared for this May 29 when he was assuming the saddle of that #1 seat in Eagle Square. I mean, we were all there at the time. And so now, this is coming up again. Look at the first rider. Gives 2 slots to successor. However, that will be because now all the candidates say, you will see how I'm going to win. I will shock everybody. So
the eternal optimists that they are.
They say, you will see, you're underrating me. Don't worry. They will see my path to victory. I will win here, there.
The calculations are always very interesting, Chamberlain.
Well, they had better just prepare for what happens thereafter. You know, so they don't leave the people, you know, gobsmacked, as it were. But look at the second rider. 2023 elections. FG orders closure of varsities for 3 weeks. Lecturers will swear to oath of neutrality, says INEC. INEC laments 1,241 pre-election suits, seeks pro bono service from NBA. This is the thing now, because the commission is they're grappling with all of this. 1,241. But clearly, we'll have to focus on the judiciary and ask some questions of that arm of government in terms of what can be done. I mean, how do people perceive these kind of scenarios? So remember, for several people, perception is their reality. But speaking about, look at this. You see that at the bottom strip. Cancer, dealing with high incidence, cost of containment. You see all of that here. You need to just pay attention, because the rate at which certain things happen these days across the world, even in the country, it is indeed alarming. I know I see some cancer centers in a national one, but I don't know how functional it is. I might as well just drive in one of these days and get up to speed on things myself. So it's just my nose for news, just elongating.
Well, if you're speaking about the one along the airport road, it certainly has been abandoned since the other years. That was supposed to be the pet project of the wife of former president, late president, as a matter of fact, Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. But it would seem that that project, was abandoned shortly after, he died and left office. So. I don't know if any government or any of the first ladies will consider it a worthwhile project to continue with, because if you look at the rate of cancer in the country, truly it is something to mull over and see how it is that government can intervene. But let me take you through Leadership Friday today. It's a Friday, yes it is, and Leadership Friday has this: 15 days to elections. PMB's exit plan rules out chance of interim government. That's the lead story there. CSO's one proponents. President names Boss Mustafa Transition Council chairman as federal government clears coast for 3.8 million students to vote. Well, we'll bring you a little on that much later. INEC battles with 1,241 pre-election cases. Rejects party members as returning officers. So there ain't no way. Let me speak some American English. There ain't no way that INEC is going to be accepting that. I mean, party members as returning officers. Page 4 is where you find details. Look at this. NBC approves 67 new broadcast stations, fines 17, sanctions 302. You find details somewhere on page 7. Naira swap, your monies are safe in banks. NDIC assures Nigerians. I don't think people question the safety of their money in banks. They've been wondering whether they'll be able to get some out of their, according to the NLC, impounded cash in the bank. That's because it would seem that was what has happened. Your money has been impounded in the bank. You can't get access to it. I think it has the assurance Nigerians want. When I want it, can I get my money when I want, how I want, in the manner that I want? That's the question people are asking. Well, you also see there, this has become political, APC or Obaseki differ on policy suspension. So today would have been the final day. We still do not know. It's still very unclear if it is indeed the final day, if the CBN will be obeying the order of the Supreme Court, given that it wasn't joined in that matter. We're yet to hear anything concrete from the CBN. But we'll leave it there for Leadership Friday.
Flip to this Nigeria. This Nigeria leads with, that story that broke yesterday on whether or not the students will be able to vote. But there is good news now. Polls, NUC orders 3 weeks closure of varsities. February 22 to March 14, shut down to enable students participate in elections and safety of workers' institutions. That's ascribed to Adamu, Education Minister. Well, the conversation is also to the extent that it's not just for them to be able to vote. What about, ensuring their security? And it was good to listen to the INEC chairman yesterday during that engagement with vice chancellors when he says they're making adequate arrangements, unusual strategizing for security of all formations that will be conducting the elections. Look at this one. Buhari constitutes transition council ahead of May 29 exit. That's a page 12 read. And just beneath that, you'll find this one as well. APC fighting for old notes to buy votes. Not me, PDP alleges. And that's a page 13 read. Under that as well, this is a heartwarming one. 34 terrorists surrender as troops kill 56 in Northeast. Well, there's a term, isn't there a terminology that they use? They say the neutralize terrorists. But that's a page 7 read. Just in case you're wondering about details, you find them on page 7. Look at this one. More surprises are coming in ahead of the elections. Controversy trails alleged resignation of Sokoto deputy governor. Just in case you're wondering if he resigned, the report really is about a defection to the ruling party, not necessarily a resignation as deputy governor. Well, the rider underneath it says, as 11 Taraba commissioners defect from PDP to APC. So will there be more surprises in the coming days?
Is there a precursor to the big boy in that? Because I remember something similar, not precisely happening in, I think it was in Ogun State as well, but hey, you know what?
Who is the big boy, by the way?
Please. All right, the Daily Trust newspaper has this one on its front page. It's more concerned about how life is treating every Nigerian right now. Naira crisis, food traders count losses, slash prices of wares. Look at the writers. POS operators close shops. Experts dissent situation. Beg your pardon. Experts dissect situation. FG official Lord's development. Emefiele, INEC chair, brief Council of State today. That story you'll find details of on page 4 of the paper. And of course, those pictures are of traders right there on the front page of the paper. Still on the Naira swap crisis, NSA, beg your pardon, Naira swap, cashless policy may affect troops. Okay, it's getting closer home. That's a subscribe to the NSA. I find the details of that right there on the front, on the inside pages, as well as I've campaigned in over 500 local government areas. Subscribe to Kwankwa. So, NUC directs varsities to close for elections. Okay, what does all of that mean? You'll find the details of that on the inside pages of the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. Gemini?
Take a look at Vanguard newspaper next. Old notes will obey Supreme Court ruling, says FG. Point blank. Probably. Well, that's the way it should be. So that is the big lead on the front page of Vanguard here today. Have its consequences. But look at this beneath this leak story. It's tucked in here, but if it does happen, it will have huge implications of which we may have no idea of the ramifications. Bank workers threaten to down tools over attacks. So, we know that some of them have been attacked. I mean, you see videos of such. But if they were to down tools, I tell you, it will be worse. Because...
No, we sincerely hope that they don't. We sincerely hope that the notes will be available today and every day. But of course, I do know that some banks have taken proactive measures to shut down branches in places where they perceive it could be volatile, where they suspect that they could have, or where they have intelligence that, you know, they could come under attack as a result of the anger of the populace, or the suspicion of the populace that they have these monies and are unwilling to give them, you know, the new notes. We sincerely hope that that's something that is looked into, and that in those places where there, you know, you have a huge population of people who are seeking their funds, that there will be, you know, perhaps mobilization of more money to those areas to be able to meet the needs. Just the same way the NNPC is trying to flood the market with products so that people can have petrol. There needs to be flooding of those areas with currency so people can have access to their money.
And you know, sometimes this is where your community relations, social responsibility, this is where if you've been doing them diligently, not just for the optics, this is where you test it. whether or not your PR department at the banks or your community relations department at the banks, or maybe even government relations in the company, if they really are doing their jobs. It is at times like this that those policies are measured.
You know that PR oftentimes happens, or CSR usually happens at the headquarters, not exactly at the branches.
No, they need to
so perhaps there needs to be a rethink of the strategies that banks deploy. But take a look at New Telegraph this morning, and this is what they have for you. Old banknotes, confusion as banks insist on today's deadline. So I mentioned it earlier that we didn't get any clarity from the CBN, which is what we would have expected to hear, at least as of yesterday. Today is not too late to know whether or not the date still stands, because there's not been any consensus on the part of lawyers, and there was some advisory, some legal advisory saying that the CBN's order was not binding on the CBN. So I think that there ought to have been some clarity on the part of the CBN if this February 10 date still stands for them, and whether or not they were going to be obeying the order of the CBN. I mean, one of the mails we received yesterday said that the CBN is a part of Nigeria, and that was an order from the highest court of the land. That's the kind of simple logic some people are applying to it, but we do not know if that's what the lawyers or the legal advisors of the central bank are saying. And that's what the New Telegraph is highlighting this morning. Confusion as banks insist on today's deadline. Federal government will obey Supreme Court ruling, says Malami. So at least that's some assurance. Whether it extends to the CBN is really unclear. CBN yet to officially inform lenders of any extension. Countdown clock on Apex Bank's website still had February 10 deadline. Last night, Nance begged students, youths to shun violent protests. Yeah, there's been some warning all on that one, but details you'll find on page 2. Elections, NUC orders closure of varsities into varsity centers. Will scrutinize list of returning collation officers, INEC tells VCs. Catholic agency calls for watertight security in FCT communities. And look at this, talking about petrol, PMS crisis. Depot owners begin sale at 172 Naira ex-depot price.
What day, February 14th?
It doesn't say what day here, but it's supposed to be Valentine's. It's Valentine message. Well, they have a number of riders, and we'll be unable to take those riders. So many of them. But look at this, infrastructure, Nigeria to benefit from OPEC fund, AFC's $15 million pact. So something to mull over. They have a number of other stories for you, but let's leave it there for you on New Telegraph.
Yes, indeed, and that does end. Or look at somebody from pages this morning. Remember, you can communicate with us. Let us know what you think about any of these headlines or whatever else you may hear in the course of the program in here today that you may have had up to here. We love to hear from you. But just give us a moment. We will be back.
The era of form over substance, the era of technicality over justice is gone and buried forever. If you look at the case of Attorney General of Oyo State versus Bello versus Attorney General of Oyo State, decided in 1986 by the Supreme Court, you will see the beautiful dictum of great jurists like Oputa, like Kayode Esho. He said, and when the spirit, when the apparition of technicality comes out of their graves, clanking their manacled legs, he said you should put them back in the graves where they belong and do substantial justice. We are talking about serious matter as the representative of the people. And the people have chosen their own representative. Then you are elevating the issue of form, procedure, of how a case was filed to say a person who did not participate in primaries, who was never voted for by the people, we now go and represent the people against a person who was popularly voted for. Let me tell you what is going to happen. I can see what you call protest votes in that constituency, in that senatorial zone. with all respect, the Supreme Court is not just a court of law. It's also a court of policy.
Yeah, policy.
And that is why I'm always defending the judiciary and the Supreme Court, because when we violate it, when we allow it to be violated, there will be trouble.
Welcome back to the 2023 verdict. We're coming to you live from Channels Television. Well, we've got Mr. Emeka Etiaba joining us this morning. He is a senior advocate of Nigeria. Good morning, sir. Thank you for coming on today. Today is what many people consider to be a big day. If you look through some of the dailies, the persons wondering, CBN, are they supposed to make a statement? Today was supposed to be that deadline. And then another scenario, FG saying, well, we will obey court order. So from the point of law, perhaps we'll just take you through, at least for non-legal minds, what should they expect having listened to that position of the Supreme Court, which they will eventually take a look at those cases eventually.
Okay, a court order is a court order. Even if it's a nullity, the law says it should be obeyed. But there are curious issues surrounding that order. And I think one or two people have canvassed it in the public sphere. Can a court make an order against a non-party in a suit? Maybe that's one of the issues Central Bank is contending with. But I will not speak for Central Bank. I'm not here to speak for Central Bank. But I'll tell you that I think Nigerians know what is going on. And it is extremely sad that what is going on is going on. You know, the issue of Naira design, every Tom, Dick and Harry, or the enlightened should know what the government is seeking to achieve. You know, in every policy, that's what is called mischief. There's always a mischief that a policy or a rule or a law seeks to curb. And now we are faced with elections in 2 weeks. Yeah. And it is beyond conjecture that some people have stockpiled ill-gotten wealth and would want to buy up Nigerians, for Nigerians to continue in this servitude. And so the central bank, relying on the powers conferred on the bank, came up with this design, which should be a plus for Nigerians. But I will say something. Yeah. I will say something. You see, central bank is contending not only with the people who are fighting against this policy, but they're also contending against the National Orientation Agency, a body who should enlighten Nigerians on the policies of government and the goings-on in the society. They have gone mute. They are not speaking. They are not enlightening the people. Nobody knows the reason why Naira is redesigned. Nobody knows the gains. Because if the people who are protesting, if the people who are going through hell like me and you know that it is for a season, it is just to make sure that this election goes on and there's free and fair election for Nigerians to thrive.
Even though, excuse me, that is not the reason that the CBN gave for this redesign. But today, when, maybe I should even pick up this, when you say, can the court speak for a party that has not been joined?
Yes.
That will be a legal matter.
Yes.
But at the moment, that order subsists.
Yes.
So whether or not the court can speak for a person who has not been joined is a matter they will take up at that level.
True, but again, you know, what plays out in the courts most of the time are not known outside the courts. It's also possible that CBN is challenging that order.
Yes, but
it's also possible.
Yeah, I'm trying to bring it to our everyday experience. For instance, if today, lots of people are thinking they ought to get a statement from the CBN.
Yes.
Or for instance, will the statement from the federal government saying we will obey court order, does it subsist? Can that be taken as though, well, yes, CBN will have no choice if federal government has spoken? And if that were the case, if I go out there today, can the banks, can anyone tell me, if I bring out the old Naira notes, can they tell me, will they have a right to say, this, we cannot accept this note today?
As it were, even the policy does not make it illegal or unacceptable. old notes are still being transacted with. They are being paid in. I think it's until the 10th that will happen. That's at the end of today.
Yeah.
At the end of today. So wait until at the end of
How
today.
to tap and be sure.
Yes, yeah, it's until at the end of today. That's what it is. But I can tell you that order says the party that has been sued is Attorney General of the Federation. And that order says the federal government acting through other agencies. And the federal government that is the principal party in the order has said we will obey.
So the agencies, the CBN, have got to follow suit. If the government says
so they have spoken. The principal has spoken.
So no one can say, whether it's today or tomorrow, if anyone presents the old Naira note, they have no right to reject it.
Today is the 10th of February.
Today and tomorrow. Or if, okay, fine. They approach there tomorrow.
Yeah, today is the 10th. So wait until after today.
Well, you know how it happens.
But the federal government has said we will obey. Don't preempt the federal government.
Okay, so for tomorrow, if they were to present the old Naira note,
maybe you will invite me back on Sunday.
Mr. Temba, you're not a politician, you're a lawyer, so tell us, what is the
I'm
position?
not a political.
Oh dear.
I'm not a political. In fact, Nigeria has driven everybody to the point where there's no politician, there's no non-politician anymore. Everybody is active in the political sphere.
Yeah, so, regardless of whether or not people are political or not, you know, there's some basics that we can agree on.
Definitely.
In terms of how this policy has affected, you know, everyone, or how it has affected the populace. The kinds of things that we have seen from the banks has been unprecedented. The people who have been affected by, I mean, look at today's dailies, for instance, old banknotes, confusion as banks insist on today's deadline. It ought not to be. Look at this, Naira crisis, food traders count losses, slash prices of wares. This is not what was precedented by the policy of the... I don't think that this was what the central bank intended when it said to redesign the Naira. So if this is not what was intended and people are really, really suffering, I mean, you and I, we are at a certain level enlightened that maybe we are able to still carry on regardless. But these are the immediate consequences. People who live from hand to mouth finding it a bit difficult. Shouldn't there be questions as to, or a review of this policy, perhaps to ease the discomfort that people are going through?
Okay, thank you, Mo. The truth is that you have to draw a dichotomy between the policy and the people who are implementing it, the implementation. I think much of the problem that we face today in Nigeria is the implementation. We have seen that some banks stash these monies away and probably in connivance with politicians give them out. Do you understand? Maybe these monies are not reaching the people because the government cannot be that naive that they say don't transact with old notes and they are not making available the new notes. It's also possible that the problem is with the implementation, not the policy. And again, we look at it and we tell ourselves the truth. The truth is that the central bank has put machineries in motion to make sure that the policy is implemented as they planned. I'm not their spokesman, but I know that if you read the newspapers, if you go through, if you listen to channels, TV, you will find out that central bank has deployed men and women in different centers, different areas of Nigeria, trying to make sure that these monies go down. That's a story of a machine, dispensing machine, money dispensing machine, bankers wrapped up Naira and put there, never thought they were waterproof so that it will not dispense that money. So when you go to the machine, ATM machine, you see money inside it, but it cannot dispense. So every opportunity in Nigeria is an opportunity for people to cash in and make money. And that is so sad. So CBN, apart from obeying the court order, should review or continue to review the implementation. And so that's my take on it for now.
Okay, so now the other matter is the perception of the courts in this, and judiciary basically, in this whole scheme as we move on to our elections. There are quite a number of people who just think they can't relate. They think that the court is an abstract. They think it's just aloof, not in touch with our present reality. Sometimes things are about to happen, and then the court gives an order, and it just shifts and affects every other thing. So they think that the court is pliable. For those who have that kind of impression, what can you say to them?
I'll say to them that they are not wrong. They're not wrong because we'll see certain things, certain decisions that do not go well with the people, and even the dramatis personae. They know that what the Supreme Court has held is not in line with what they saw in the field. For example, I'm not about commenting on Lawan's judgment, but the truth is that everybody knows that Lawan contested for the presidential ticket of APC. So how come he ended up with the ticket of APC, a senatorial ticket of APC? So these are realities that people see with their eyes. And so when the judgment comes, no matter how brilliant the judgments are, when they don't accord with what they see with their eyes, they are bound to complain. There are judgments like that. And so that calls also for a review of the participation of the judiciary in pre-election matters and even post-election matters. More of it should go to the political parties and not to the judiciary.
So does that then mean that, because after we see cases where the courts, for instance, declares a governor or declares someone a governor, and many just think, no, this cannot be. This is not what we want. So Supreme Court put certain people in certain places, and you thought probably lessons might have been learned. So still a lot of people think it doesn't appear as though that is the case. How do we relate with that?
Yeah, that's where we are. We've seen cases. I've not gone to, since February last year, I've only been to my village twice. Maybe twice, because of insecurity. And these breed insecurity from Imo State, where the major one happened. There has been unrest. Insecurity commenced from there and has spilled over Anambra. Because when we sit in courts and speak English, we do not realize what the ripple effects are. I can also tell you that when I watch the National Assembly players talk and bandy their arguments and all that, I actually also wonder whether they go back to their villages to know what their actions and policies portend for the people. So it is very important, like you said, these people should not feel like they are shut out from the society. We're all Nigerians. We're all Nigerians, and we should know where these decisions and these policies leave Nigerians. So I am not about saying that everything judiciary does is good or correct. No. For example, you look at the pre-election matters that have been decided. The Electoral Act gives power to the Federal High Court to determine all pre-election matters. Over 50% of the matters determined by Federal High Court were upturned or are being upturned by the Court of Appeal. So you now find out that the law is no longer certain. The political parties do not know who their candidates are until the final judgment. And when the final judgment at the Supreme Court comes, they grapple with it even when they are not happy with it.
Is this something the NBA can address? Because it borders on the profession.
MBA cannot quite, MBA can, it's like, they can talk, but they cannot coerce, they cannot discipline. When you talk about decisions in court.
NJC should look at that, or what?
NJC, decisions in court are not subject to disciplinary issues. It is only when there are manifest cases of indiscretion that the parties can petition and the NJC will look at it.
I know they say justice must not just be done, it must be seen to have been done. Yes. So what are they doing about all of that? Well, let's bring in our colleagues from Lagos. They've got questions for you. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Just to be clear, Mr. Chiab, I just wanted to clear something based on the question Chamberlain asked you earlier. Or it was Mark that asked a question. Today is February 10. And to use the words of the Vice President, so many people are going to be needing cash for transport, for so many other things today. Parents are going to give children cash to go to school and stuff like that. Today is February 10, the deadline the CBN has declared for the Naira swap stuff to end. Will people be able to use their old Naira notes today? Even though the Supreme Court has made a ruling, but the CBN is yet to make clarifications.
While I still insist that I'm not a spokesman of the CBN, I know the federal government says they will obey court order, and I know that until the end of today, no one will say for sure whether CBN will make monies available today or not. But I am aware, based on what I see and what I read, that CBN is trying to make sure that the sufferings of the people are ameliorated, that the implementation is seamless. I'm aware that those moves are being made, and made very innocently.
And Mr. Itiaba, if I were to visit the bank, if I were to visit the bank this morning with an intention to deposit my old note, and my banker declines, accepting that currency from me, am I? What are the options left for me? Should I, argue with the CBN verdict saying that they are duty bound to collect the old currency from me?
You see, my sister, the truth is that Nigeria has become a jungle. Nobody has any right. You want to travel, you buy a flight ticket, you get to the airport, there's no flight, there's no announcement as to what is going on. And at the end of the day, flight is cancelled. You're not able to find any solution to your problem, and you cannot complain. Just as with what question you have asked, the truth is that you go to the bank today, if they don't accept money from you and they don't dispense money, based on the Supreme Court ruling order, you can go back to court and then seek damages. That's what option that you can explore. Go back to court to ventilate your anger, because you obviously have a right of action.
Mr. Itiaba, what would you do? What would you do were you to be faced with the same circumstance?
If I were the one, I would not go at all.
All right. You refuse to commit, Mr. Itiaba, so I'll make progress in the conversation. In relation to Chamberlain's last question on what the NBA can do, it's curious for me, because the same lawyers, your colleagues in the profession, would go to court representing political parties, arguing on technicalities. And when the rulings, emerge, they come on different platforms to bellyache, their colleagues, and describe the rulings as lame. Do the legal practitioners' disciplinary committee, do they have honest conversations, about how members of the profession are presenting that field in the public?
Oh, yes. I would assure you that in the past 3 regimes of the NBA, the presidents and the executives have been very consistent in warning lawyers not to go on air or congregate after every court decision to analyze and condemn judgments of court. They have not hidden that fact that they detest it. And even at the last Supreme Court, what function was it? I think it was the elevation of the new senior advocate sometime this year. I remember the president of the bar even indicted publicly senior advocates who were fond of making such comments. Their names were mentioned and actions were threatened to be taken. So the NBA is not taking it lightly. But again, you know that these days you have the good, the bad, and the ugly in every vocation, in every profession. So there's a limit to what you can also do, because for as long as there's somebody to pay school fees and there's a brain to pass exams, at the end of the day, that one will be called to the bar. But then what that guy does with his certificate is a different thing. But the NBA detests it. And even within the NBA is also very worried, especially the current president of the bar.
Mr. Tiaba, it's not just about the condemnation. It's not just about the condemnation of the judgments, but the disagreement amongst lawyers on rulings, emerging to the extent that we have Supreme Court appointed candidates and winners of elections. So the perception is that, lawyers themselves are the problems. That's the direction I'm headed with the question.
The lawyers are not the ones that deliver these rulings and the judgments. The lawyer canvasses his case to the best of his ability. And if the judex decides to be blown away by empty argument, you can't blame the lawyer. Like I said also, growing up, I grew up in a family where law is not strange. My father was a lawyer of the 60s, and I know for sure that issues relating to court matters are not issues of brilliance alone. You cannot be seen as a lawyer, argue this principle today, and tomorrow you go to the other side and argue directly opposite. But these are not things you tell young men of this day. Their own is that they are focused on the money. Where is the money coming from? Where is the money coming? I remember years back, a very senior lawyer of note was chastised by the Supreme Court because he had argued a particular position in a matter, and at the next time similar matter came up, he took diametrically opposite position and also argued it very brilliantly. And the Supreme Court justices descended on him, but these are not things you tell anybody today because lives have been monetized, and most people are looking at the money. For me, I don't argue everything I see, but there's a limit to how many numbers that will do it the way you want it done. But the issue is that the judgments come from the judges. It doesn't come from the lawyers. So the lawyer can write whatever he wants to write, but it behoves on the judex to say this is the law, and this is the principle that has been settled on this matter, and this is where I go.
Yes, and the monetization of the process is where I'm headed. Since election petitions are seen as some sort of a cash cow, and INEC also acknowledged yesterday that there are over 1,000 cases at different levels of election petitions. Going forward, would it help that the process be demonetized, such that this delay and this clog in the electoral process will be reduced to the barest minimum?
I don't understand how monetization comes into the clogging of courts. The problem we have in Nigeria with respect to pre-elections that are going on today is the indiscipline of party leaders. The party leaders themselves do not play fairly. I know of a particular case where the national executive of a political party collects money from all the aspirants of a given position, and then now eventually settle on one. And when that happens, the other ones that were defrauded and left to sink with their ambition get very bitter, extremely bitter, and they decide they will challenge the process, that pre-election. And when they get into that, they even spend more money that they spent in their campaigns, making sure that if they don't get it, they will spoil it. If they don't get the ticket, they will make sure that nobody gets it. And so the party executives are the ones that are at the foundation of this problem. If they make the pre-election, the primaries fair, then the people who lose will say, beat their chest and say, I lost, and they go home. They even support the ones that won. So it's actually not an issue. Monetization probably goes to when you talk about whether bribery occurs or does not occur. That's where monetization comes in. Well, and then with what the national chairman of INEC said about the number of pre-election matters that are pending and writing to the Bar Association. Yes, he did well to have written to the Bar Association. But some of us have also said we're ready to grant them pro bono service. And I'm saying it in public, in national TV, international TV. Some of us, not just writing to MBA, some of us senior lawyers who are deep into election matters, I have also offered that we can help them do a few cases pro bono.
Okay. Well,
that offer is still there.
Yeah. Well, just to also speak to one of the things that the president of the NBA
please, again, there's something that is important.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, there's something that is also important. You see, you talk about clogging the courts. You're right. But I also think that there's need to review the Constitution, because House of Assembly, National Assembly, pre-election matters they don't have any business going to the Supreme Court, just like post-election matters. They shouldn't go to Supreme Court. They should terminate at the point of Court of Appeal. Why would Supreme Court sit over tens of thousands of pre-election matters?
Well, I guess that also speaks to
pre-election matter.
A number of things have been said along that line. My apologies for butting in, because even your colleagues in the legal profession have also said there is a need for a complete overhaul of the judiciary, including judicial practice or legal practice in that sense. But speak to that comment made by the president of your association, the NBA, which says that he apologizes to Nigerians on behalf of legal practitioners, that the judiciary hasn't, well, maybe judicial practitioners haven't really stood up to themselves, and maybe by extension, judiciary in total hasn't quite lived up to their expectation of defending Nigeria's democracy. In the light of the issue raised by some of my colleagues here already about clogging the courts and some of the issues that you have also raised, that many of the people who go to court are within the political parties. They are lawyers as well, and they know the angles to bring up these issues. How do we ensure that going forward, in the light of the comment of the president of the NBA, that the judiciary does live up to its expectations and not unnecessarily complicate the judicial process, and see that justice is not just done, but seen to be done?
Okay. One of the ways to do that is, of course, enlightenment, to enlighten lawyers and judges who participate in these matters. That's number one. Number two is that there's also undue pressure on the courts. I'll tell you, every lawyer wants to become a senior advocate. And one of the ways to become a senior advocate is to make sure that you amass enough judgments of the High Court, Court of Appeal, and Supreme Court. And so every opportunity for such lawyers to participate in these cases is welcome. So you find out that most of these cases are not actually coming from the aspirants. They're also coming from lawyers who are interested in fanning it to the Supreme Court level so that they will make their numbers. Yeah. And so it's also possible that Privileges Committee can say, of the cases that we will consider, election matters will not be part of it.
All right.
So that people will withdraw a bit from sponsoring frivolous election and pre-election matters and face other areas of law. You know what Nigerians see today. What Nigerians see today is the pre-election matters and the numbers. Mm-hmm. The ripple effect is terrible. No, the normal cases are not going on. Even in the Apex Court. Apex Court has made room for political matters to be heard because they have expiry date. You know, so the major economy determining cases are left in the background. Nobody's attending to them. So it's even worse at that level. So there's need to do something to get these numbers down.
So as we wind down now, and this is being hypothetical, if the elections were to say, or if we were to have both elections, the presidential elections, all the elections as a matter of fact, the February and the March elections, if we were to have them in one day, would it be against the law as it stands today?
The timetable has been released.
If tomorrow we hear that owing to certain things, the elections perhaps has been rescheduled and both of them will now hold on a particular day, would there be against the law?
I have not encountered any constitutional provision that makes it illegal or unconstitutional. Okay. But probably what the commission will be looking at is the practicability.
Okay, so what about if they were to reschedule the date from February 25 to another date? Would it be against the law?
It has happened before. It's not against the law. But what is the purpose of that shift? Because a political party says, APC says it is not convenient, move it.
I'm not saying APC is saying so.
No, I understand they've written. They've not just spoken. They've written for a shift. And I'm asking, what is the purpose?
They've also denied it. I think.
If they have denied it, good luck to them. And I pray they deny it.
Okay, but let me confirm from you. I mean, you seek a reduction of the judiciary's involvement in, our electoral matters.
Yes.
Is it something that is really feasible? I mean, sitting very pragmatically where you are as a senior advocate of Nigeria, much as, yes, you have a few recipes, is it something that you think we can achieve, say, within the next 4 years, maybe by the next electoral cycle? Because a number of people thought with the introduction of a new electoral act, I mean, Electoral Act 2022, that perhaps we will see a reduction of cases. But 1,200 and how many cases pre-election matters doesn't give an indication that things are about to reduce, and the judiciary is about to be less involved in electoral matters.
Yes, given another 4 years, an amendment of the Constitution can curb it, can help. But you ask yourself...
It has to be a constitutional amendment.
It has to be a constitutional amendment. But you ask yourself, because when you do electoral amendment to the Electoral Act, it still has to relate to the Constitution. Does the Constitution permit it? That is why card reader was never reckoned with, because the Electoral Act had it, Constitution never had such provision. But I'll tell you something. We have a major issue in Nigeria. Who are the ones who are amending even the Constitution and the Act? The same politicians. And so they look at where a law leaves them before they say yes or no. And that is the problem we have. And that's why we're saying, some are saying, and I subscribe to it, that there should be restructuring. There should be a meeting of minds in Nigeria for us to say, really, is this what we have bargained for? Is it what we need?
All right, then, that is where we'll let it go with Mr. Emeka Etiaba, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. Thank you very much indeed for your time today.
Thank you.
We will be back in just a moment. Stay with us.
National Electoral Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, is meeting with vice-chancellors of federal universities. The aim of the meeting is to discuss the involvement of the vice-chancellors in the 2023 general election, which is about 2 weeks away. INEC is engaging with the vice-chancellors as state collation officers for the presidential election and returning officers for the governorship elections. The academicians, however, have their concerns. Chief among them is security.
My concern was security, so I won't belabor that point to know how we're going to be protected. Thank you, and all our members.
INEC is, however, assuring them that all those involved in the exercise are safe.
We are working on a very comprehensive election security plan that covers not just the vice-chancellors in their capacities as returning officers and state collation officers for the presidential election, but all categories of election duty staff.
He also urged them to conduct proper background checks on those who will work with the electoral body, avoiding those with political affiliations. Back at the headquarters of the Commission, the president of the Nigerian Bar Association, Mr. Yakubu Mekiel, is visiting to emphasize that the association is not partisan and would not allow anything to taint the electoral process. However, the INEC chairman is concerned about the high number of pre-election litigations, and in most cases, it has nothing to do with the Commission.
We are here to say to you that the Nigerian Bar Association is solidly behind INEC, solidly behind your administration, and we would not allow anything that would take.
The National Universities Commission did put up this statement, ministerial directive on the closure of all universities and inter-university centers during the upcoming 2023 general elections. Well, this notice did say vice-chancellors as well as directors, chief executives of inter-university centers are, by this circular, requested to shut down their respective institutions from Wednesday, 22nd February 2023 to Tuesday, 14th March 2023, as signed by Chris Meyaki, Deputy Executive Secretary, Admin for the Executive Secretary of the NUC. So that is the message, the notification that came through yesterday. So there had been several conversations as to whether or not the students will be allowed to go ahead and vote. So now there you have it. So at the moment, they will be able to go ahead and vote. So that matter and some other matters. As a matter of fact, if you look at voter distribution by categories, you get to see, yes, we do have 93.4 million odd registered number of voters, of which 52.5% of them are male, 47.5% of them are female. But you then get to zoom in and you see about 27% odd of, you see, young people, students, and then you'll also see youths of 18 to 34 who are also on that board. So this closure will have its implications and impact on the elections, assuming all of these people were, or a large chunk of this demography of people were to go ahead and participate. So we'll be discussing that and more on this segment with Ahmed Adamu. Dr. Ahmed Adamu is the SA Youth and Strategy for Atiku Abubakar. He's a university lecturer. He's also in that academia, also a member he holds a position within the People's Democratic Party. Good morning, Dr. Ahmed. Thank you for joining us on the program today.
Good morning, Chamberlain. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's get to it. First of all, what was, having gotten that announcement, lecturers, are you going to be, well, you're in politics, so you will not be able to do anything whatsoever in that regard. But a lot is expected of lecturers this time around. They're supposed to be forthright because there have been several, in some cases, 1 or 2 lecturers have been found wanting. I think that case is still going on in Akwa Ibom State. So what is it thinking now in terms of the kind of responsibility that the lecturers have got to carry out with these elections?
Sorry? Can you say that again? I didn't hear the question again.
But can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you now. Yes.
Yeah, so in terms of the weight of responsibility, what kind of narrative, what kind of conversation is going on within where you are at the moment, in that circle?
Well, it's a welcome development that the universities are going to be closed. The students, the lecturers, the staff will also have the time to participate in the election process. Because when you mentioned that up to 30% of the voters are our students in the universities, so we want that number to participate in the election because we want a larger voter turnout. Because this election, we want more people to participate because when people have interest in the election, tendency is that we're going to have much more interest on the governance because we want to improve the governance. And then when more people are participating, there's going to be more supervision and more interest, and that will enhance the good governance. And for the lecturers, they will also be participating as election officials on behalf of the INEC. So I think it's the best thing that the Nigerian government has taken to close the university. And above that, when you look at the situation in the country, the security concern, because of so many uncertainties. So it's the best thing for the safety of the universities for them to be closed at this hour, apart from their constitutional right, opportunity.
Okay.
It's for their safety too, because a lot of people are emotionally and economically choked off. So anything can happen. So a lot of uncertainty.
Before this announcement, I mean, we've seen several campaigns and politicians, they usually, the retinue sprinkling of student population, student leadership in different parts of the country who tend to support candidates on the election day. You see them on the podium and things like that. Before this announcement came through, were the campuses buzzing? Were they looking forward to these elections? What was the atmosphere?
Well, from our perspective, we've been visiting some of the universities, and a lot of young people of support of a change, because what we discovered was that a lot of young people in these universities, they are beginning to have independent mindset. There are people who may likely to have an informed decision because the ethnic and religious bigotry has not yet gotten into them. So there are people who want to listen to the candidates to find out about what plans do you have. These are people, even in their student union elections, you see them holding their leaders accountable, want to listen to them. So I think that's why I want to have more young people like that, kind of segment to be participating in the election, because that's going to filter out the uninformed voting. Because most of the problems we face in terms of good governance is not actually from the leaders, it's from the voters, because we don't have bad leaders, we only have uninformed voters. Because any person that you see, you think is a good governor or not performing leader, he was voted by certain people. And people could have seen the incompetency of these people before the election. So when we have more young people who are not yet financially induced, who are beginning to have their independent mindset, I think there's going to be a better choice. And this is most important election for the young people, because whatever we are doing in this election is for the future. And who is going to live to see the future? So the future of these young people are at stake. And this is one of the most important elections for the whole country, because we are at a point where things have never been this worse. Things have never been this uncertain, economically, educationally, socially, especially when we talk about security. The Nigerians have changed a government, a sitting government, hoping for security, hoping for economic prosperity. They have not seen it. So it's not something new for Nigerians now to start thinking of doing something revolutionary. And this election, that's why I say it's one of the most important
But Dr. Ahmed,
elections.
if I could just jump in. So I know you heard about this narrative that young people may not or will not necessarily vote for the APC or the PDP because they've seen these parties before. They know what to expect. They want to try something new. You are SAU to Atiku Abubakar. How are you relating with him, especially when this kind of narrative is out there?
Well, one of the things that's very beautiful about young people is that they have this kind of analytical mind to think through, and not just to think of a party alone, but looking at the candidates themselves. But even if you're looking at the party, young people are aware of the hardships, if not themselves, but their parents are undergoing because of the failure of this administration. People have rejected the APC, and it has reached to the extent where people cannot walk freely showing any kind of identity of the APC, either because they are ashamed or either because they are afraid that people can bend their anger on them because of what's going on. And young people are aware of the capacities of these candidates. They know that the APC candidate has so many incapacitations from so many embarrassing performances in his campaigns. So they are seeing this, they are mocking him, they are making some jokes and comedy out of that. So these are young people that are aware, conscious of the candidate. They are not that kind of politicized to even worry about the party, but looking at the candidate individually. And then this money swap has also exposed the plot of the APC to use money to buy off voters. And now people are saying, oh, hey, you guys, you want to use money to buy us? Okay, so now, okay, let's see if you can do that. And another thing is, because of so much friction and division in the APC, they will not have the chance, because the Tinubu camp is fighting the Buhari camp, and then again and again and again. So there is so much friction. And then when you take a look at the PDP candidate, Atiku Abubakar, he is somebody that represents Nigeria, not north, not south, not any zone. He is someone who is not coming from any religion or any ethnicity. He's a Nigerian candidate, and young people want that kind of neutral person, because those young people, they don't know the kind of division and things like that. And he is also, Atiku Abubakar is also physically fit. He's somebody that will go into the stage and will dance and then hug with the young people. And that this is the kind of connection that the young people are having with the PDP candidate, because he is mentally sound too.
That wasn't quite the question that my colleague asked you. I mean, he was talking about the fact, or at least the seeming fact, that a lot of young people seem disenchanted with the political class and they want a breath of fresh air. They want something new. as it were. They've tried the PDP, they've heard of the 16 years of the PDP, and it's anyone who's old enough to vote would have experienced some years of the PDP and now 7 years of the APC. And perhaps they've seen that perhaps, both parties haven't quite taken them to the promised land. And so for you to say that your candidate will be the candidate that young people will be looking forward to, a lot of them might disagree with you. How are you getting your message across to that demographic which seems to be driving, or which seems to be the force behind the third force and the fourth force, as the case might be?
Yeah, I like what you said, because young people want something new. They want to change things. They want to see what happens if this happens. And they also want to participate in the election. They want to also be the leaders. And that's exactly where I was taking you before you asked this question. Because when you look at, like I said, young people, they are not looking at APC or PDP, because some of them may have not seen the period of the previous PDP. Even if they have seen it, it was during that PDP that the Nigerian economy was as it is best so far since the beginning of democracy in recent times. So when you look at also participation of young people in leadership, when you look at PDP, there is no any party that has empowered and provide opportunities for young people as in the PDP. And when you look at the candidate, Atiku Abubakar, who is a youth-friendly president to be, and he also promised that he will give these young people and the women 60% of all his government appointment. So, hey, you guys, you have 60% stake. What are you waiting for? Come and grab it. No one has promised.
60% stake will benefit people like yourself, not the millions of young people who will eventually vote for him.
All right. Okay. If it benefits people like me, am I not a young person? Am I not entitled? Am I not competent? If the president deem it that I'm also competent, why not? Because when you give people like me, like you said, any kind of opportunity, I have so many young friends around me. So empowering me is empowering my colleagues, giving them opportunity. So it's not necessarily any particular young person. We're looking at it not like a personality or calling name, but young people are young people. But one thing that we guarantee Nigeria is that Atiku Abubakar will not appoint any young person who is not competent, because he's actually somebody who loves talent, intelligence, and what you make it. And he doesn't have to know you.
The point I'm making, Mr. Damu, is the fact that appointive positions are only so many. If that is what we're looking at as the route to empowerment, that is only going to affect so many people. I mean, there are millions, and we're taking a look at the voting population now. It's very unclear how it's going to be split. But if we're looking at the youth population, which is almost about 40% of the voting population, the question is, what precisely will he be bringing on board, apart from appointments, that will bring out the entrepreneurship, which will bring out the, I'm looking for the right word now, which will harness the talent that young people, the myriad of talents that young people have exhibited over different spheres of our, of our national life, be it in music, be it in the arts, be it in technology, that's the IT sector, that will actually move or leap this country forward. I think that's what a lot of young people will be looking more to, rather than appointive positions.
Yeah, because there are so many aspects of participation. One is the direct government or leadership training by appointing young people. The other aspect of where a large chunk of young people will also be included is development, youth development, because Atiku Abubakar promised to spend up to 8 trillion Naira in 8 years. 8 trillion, which is equivalent to $10 billion. No presidential candidate has made this promise, and he is somebody who keeps to his words. So $10 billion will be kept to empower young people. Young people, you don't have to go to university for
empower them in what respect? Empower them by giving them cash handouts, or what precisely?
That's where I'm taking you, because not everyone has to go to the university to get a degree. Some young people will stop either at the secondary school or at diploma or any tertiary certificate. So what kind of empowerment do you want to give them in terms of skills, and especially modern skills, so that we can make young people produce, be the drivers of our manufacturing sector, industrial sector, and agricultural sector, modern agriculture for export purposes. And that is why we need that kind of investment, first in infrastructure, and then in direct investment based on the needs and the requirement of the young people. And how are you going to get the money? And Atiku Abubakar is one of the best economists in Nigeria, because during his time as the leader of the Nigerian economy, he led the country to its best economic performing state. And he is very strategic in raising funds for that. And I really trust that he will support young people. So young people, you don't want to lose this $10 billion for you, which is earmarked only for the young people. No presidential candidate any president has ever done that. And we've seen young people expressing their interest and support for Atiku Abubakar. We've seen demonstration. Even today in Katsina, we are doing a big rally to support young people are coming out freely to demonstrate, to show that we support Atiku Abubakar and nobody can touch that, our interest. Our interest, our voice must be heard. So a lot of young people are expressing that. So I'm not just saying it, it's a backdrop. It's a backdrop with statistics and data. And then we did a survey recently. And then we discovered that especially in northern part of Nigeria, where we have more than 50% of the registered voters. And any person that wins in the north wins the election automatically, because that's where the larger chunk of the votes are. And then mostly are the young people from this region. And then we discovered that Atiku Abubakar is 70% preferred, even though he was affected by the candidacy of people like Peter Obi and Konkoso from the region. But that has not stopped him from being the most preferred candidate. So these are things that are already just waiting for the election to come, and Atiku Abubakar will be declared the winner by God's grace.
It'll be interesting to see what eventually happens on the 25th of February. But I am wondering, you are in the university system, and if there's anywhere where Nigerian young people have been dealt, will I say, or where they've held the short end of the stick, it's been in tertiary education. I mean, many areas of our education system are in a total state of disarray, or a state that has left a lot to be desired, especially government education system. A lot of people now resort to the private sector, but majority of young people still attend public institutions, and it's such a disgrace to see where it is that our public institutions are. Is it in terms of primary education? We know that primary education is basically the responsibility of local governments and state governments. Secondary education, both the states and the federal government also has a hand in it with what it does with the federal government colleges. But then tertiary education, which is also within the purview of the federal government and the state government, we've not exactly seen a lot of progress in those areas. Is anything, there's been so many years of strikes, particularly in the tertiary education sector. What precisely is the government, assuming he were to be elected come the 25th, what is he hoping to do differently to put a permanent end to strikes? Because we must admit that even during the PDP years, the 16 years of PDP, these strikes were also prevalent.
Well, that's a very interesting question, because when you look at the antecedent of Atiku Abubakar, he's a product of education. And he knows that for any kind of person to come up again to be anything, to produce many of Atikus, that could only happen through education. And that's why he invested in all stages of education, from kindergarten to nursery, all through. And he gives scholarship because he knows the value of education. And somebody who has already invested, he has a lot of money to invest in many places, but he decided to invest in education because he knows the value of education. And that alone, you'll be rest assured that he's going to give. But let me go specific. At a time, and to answer this one, I'll have to take it through two layers. At a time of high tension and emotions, and a lot of people thinking about whether they want to belong to this country, and then at the time when we have these educational challenges, one of the unique policy of Atiku Abubakar is the issue of restructuring. Let me take it from these two perspectives. Atiku Abubakar wants to empower the states to have more resources, to have more power, to have more control, so that they can also participate and heavily invest in the educational sector. Because when you have so much power and resources centered in the central government, that's going to be a room for mismanagement, inefficiencies, corruptions, and so many bureaucracies. And then the power and resources are very far away from the people. So before the money comes down to the people, it's going to take a long time. So let's allow the state to control resources, to have more money to invest in education, because we need 12 trillion Naira investment in the next 10 years in education for us to have that kind of enabling educational environment. So Atiku Abubakar will embark on the restructuring. That will also create competition and harnessing of so many potential resources that are not being harnessed. And that will also lead to the investment, because there is no two ways about it. Education is about money, it's about investment. And even you're talking about the quality of the teachers, you talk about the infrastructure, about access, it leads to a lot of money. And then how do you get the money? Why we have so many abundant resources? Let me give you an example. In Katsina State, we are worth 4 trillion worth of resources, but we are only collecting and waiting for the fact distribution of 4 billion every month. And then once we pay salary, we have nothing left. While we have abundance of all natural resources, solid minerals that we can tap and export and get more money and build more educational institutions, we cannot do that. But Atiku Abubakar will allow states like Katsina to do that. And another thing is, a lot of Nigerians are aggrieved and frustrated. They think they're not getting their fair share of the national resources, and they feel aggrieved. And that's why a lot of people are even concerned about who is the president, where the president comes from, which religion is the president is practicing. Hey, people wouldn't worry about those minor things if they have so much powers and control close to them. They decide, they become responsible for their outcomes. And the state governors will not point fingers of blame to the central government because they are in power.
Let me jump in and ask you, how did you come to that conclusion that Atiku Abubakar is the preferred candidate in the northern part of the country, because you said more preferred to the other candidates?
Yeah, we conducted a survey. Actually, it was a national survey. But we discovered that we need to focus more on a particular region, and as an interesting region is the northern Nigeria, because that's where we have larger proportion of the votes. And then we conducted a survey. We asked people about which region they come from and who is their first preferred candidate. And then we asked them another question: who is their second most preferred candidate? So the idea is, we want to know if people that are supporting Atiku, if Atiku would not have been in the ballot, who will they have voted for? If Tinubu is not on the ballot and people from the north, who will they have voted for? And we discovered that a lot of people, some people who, for example, are supporting Peter Obi from the north, especially some of them from the north central, they will have voted for Atiku Abubakar, even not because of Peter Obi. So, but Peter Obi has taken some portion of the Atiku's potential voters from the north central, but Atiku Abubakar has not taken from Peter Obi. So Atiku's candidacy has been affected by two major candidates, but was not like Konkoso and Obi, but he was not affected by Tinubu because most of Tinubu supporters didn't vote for Atiku as their second choices. But a lot of people that we are, majority of more than 50% of people that we are intending to vote for Konkoso, they said they will have gone for Atiku as their second choice. People that we are voting for Obi as their first choice, majority of them say, oh, if not because of Obi, I would have gone for Atiku Abubakar. So despite this affection, this impact of these two candidates that are affecting Atiku Abubakar got 70% most preferred candidate. And then he is first, and then followed by Peter Obi from the north, and then followed by Tinubu second, followed by Peter Konkoso, and then Peter Obi. Okay, sorry, let me repeat it. Let me repeat the order. First, Atiku Abubakar, followed by Konkoso, then Peter Obi, and then Tinubu. This is the order. So we discovered that, yes, so if Atiku could get this 70% from the 54% of the voters' population, then he can win the election, because once he gets the larger proportion from the...
Pardon me, was this in the urban area or rural areas, or where?
Yeah, Yeah. What we did was we posted it on some of my platform first, and then I asked some of the newspapers to post it so that we can have the kind of diversity, and it's going to be outside our cycles to filter this interest. And I'm going to share the video with you. I posted it on my social media platforms. Anyone that's interested can watch the video that reported about this survey.
Any idea of the sample size and demography of those who participated?
Yeah. The idea is to get a sample and to get the idea of the thinking or preference of the regional or zonal interest. And then we had over 52,000 people participating, but that gives you a signal, an idea of where this could happen. So it's like a possibility because we have a sample of them and we collected those information anonymously.
All right. So at the moment, clearly, I mean, I haven't seen or heard any politician who says his candidate will not win. But then it will be a thing for everybody to see. But just to put this out there, is your party, or as you, since you're SC Youth and Strategy, do you in any way also think about post-election? Or what do you think about when you think about that?
Yeah, when you ask me about post-election, is the victory I think of, and then transition, because Atiku Abubakar is somebody who is already collecting names of his potential ministers and his cabinet, because he has a plan. And in forming that plan, there are a lot of people involved. Though these 5-point agendas, that's the way his own initial thought. This is his own personal idea.
All right.
How he wants to fix this.
We're winding down. I'm just wondering, I mean, is there any consideration whatsoever? Because, I mean, strategy, you will always look at both sides. If you win, if you lose. So what kind of narrative goes on so that people don't hit the streets and think that they were robbed?
Yeah, even if we have to lose in this election, it has to be through a free and fair process, because Atiku Abubakar is somebody that respects the rule of law. But we will not tolerate any kind of rigging, manipulation, or distortions. And that's why Nigerians need to open their eyes. They should not allow any kind of plot for rigging. And this election, it can only be peaceful if it is fair. So what I anticipate is fairness from the INEC and the security as well, and all people involved. So what I think is like Atiku Abubakar is not the first time he's losing an election, but he must lose if he has to through a fair process.
Okay, so speaking about fairness,
now we win the election.
Are you satisfied with the preparations by INEC at the moment?
Yeah, for the preparation, we are okay, but we still have a lot of some unrest about a lot of uncertainties, especially that is being caused by the money swap policy. Because when you go outside now, you see a lot of people who are stranded, frustrated, and a lot of people are really choked up, angered, and any kind of slight provocation, we cannot guarantee what's going to happen in this country. So, but because especially this money swap affected small businesses, people that hawk around who receive 5 Naira, 10 Naira, and then 200 Naira. The money scarcity is affecting not only them, but even the big businesses, the service industry, because people are now only looking for money for the major basic needs, survival. Other service industries are really struggling at this moment.
What do you make of those who say that all of this is orchestrated such that they'll be frustrated with the ruling party, and then your party, will benefit from it?
Yes, because this is a fight within the APC. Because a function of the APC think if we can starve somebody, a candidate, that candidate who is banking on using on the money to buy vote, who we don't like, will not make it. And this person realizes that this money swap and this money scarcity is affecting him, and he's also fighting back. So it's a way of like we're watching them, but we are not banking on using money. We are banking on our capacity, our plans, and our track records. And we are not planning to use money to buy people, because people are already tired. People are willing to vote for Atiku Abubakar free of charge. People are bringing their money to vote for him because they are feeling in their stomach. They are feeling it in their head, frustration. You know, a lot of people are tired. They just want to change this administration.
Is it true that he says he will do just one term if he wins?
this is a decision. It's a personal decision of Atiku Abubakar. I'm not in a position to tell you what Atiku Abubakar think about, but it's a question that I'm sure you must have asked him before.
So if you were to advise him, what would you say? You're an essay.
Yeah, consistency in good policies is good, because when you set a policy, it was very good, and then there's a break.
Okay, go ahead.
And then there's a break. We are going to go back. So I'm a proponent of a prolonged leadership, but that leadership must be good leadership. And I also question the 8 years tenure, because it's really short for any progressive transformation. Because if we have a very good policy, and then 4 years in between there is election, destruction, people are uncertain, and then after 8 years, it's not enough. But if Atiku Abubakar with his plans, I think 4 years is not enough for him. I think Atiku Abubakar needs more time in leadership to implement his 5-point agenda, especially uniting the country.
Are you saying that even with 8 years, assuming that he were to run and even get another 4-year tenure, assuming he won this one, are you saying that 8 years still will not be enough for any leader to be able to have an impact?
Yeah, Atiku Abubakar, because he's a planner. He's somebody who is just coming to hit the ground running. He will make an impact, in fact, in even the first 2 years of his administration. But what I'm saying is consistency and prolonged benefit of these policies need consistency post the 8-year tenure, because I'm sure Atiku Abubakar will also like to groom other leaders who will be part of his administration to continue with that plan. Because as a good leader, you have to plan for succession, because you don't want to fail. You don't want things to stop the moment you leave, because we know your success by the succession that you left behind. So this is what this administration has not done. They have not planned for any succession. So that we have to get the right person, which is Atiku Abubakar, and who will do the better things now.
All right, then, Dr. Ahmed Damu, SA Youth and Strategy to Atiku Abubakar. You are also one of the officials of the PDP in terms of election management in the Northwest for the Presidential Campaign Council. Thank you for your time today, and all the best.
Thank you, Chamberlain. See you again.
All right, so there you go. We will be back in just a moment and focus on, of course, the next political party. So do stay with us.
This issue of paying logistics for people who are going to be transporting election material, even to wards and all that. Certainly, the assurance I give to you is that because we regard the INEC project as a most or an urgent national assignment, it cannot fail. And the central bank will not allow itself either to be used or itself to be, central bank to be seen as an agent that frustrated a positive outcome of that election.
Sokoto, the seat of the Caliphate, welcomes President Muhammadu Buhari as he leads the APC presidential campaign trail. The leadership of the National Assembly takes the lead in canvassing for votes for the party's presidential candidate, Senator Bola Tinubu.
Tinubu was a former governor. Kassim Shettima, a former governor. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? They've seen it all. They've seen it from the legislative point of view. They've seen it from the executive point of view. When they were serving in the legislature, they did abundantly well. When they served as governors in the executive, they did abundantly well. When you now combine both executive and legislature, what you get best governance in the history of Nigeria.
Ahmed Bola Tinubu, your brother, your friend, is going to be our president from the 29th of May 2023.
Senator Tinubu, who is impressed with the turnout of party supporters in Sokoto State, promises to tackle insecurity among several other challenges.
We promise we will work hard We will eliminate corruption. We will drive away madness called kidnapping. We will do hard work. Clean Nigeria of rubbish. Those who spend 60 years producing lies, fighting naked in Wuse Market.
The president then presents the APC presidential candidate as he urges residents of Sokoto to vote for him.
Today, we are in Sokoto State, the seat of the Caliphate, to campaign for our party's candidate, Tinubu. He is my candidate. We should all vote for him and inform those that are not here with us.
And the APC remains optimistic of retaining power at the federal level.
Welcome back to the 2023 verdict. We're coming to you live from Channels Television here in Nigeria. Well, Ismail Ahmed, as you've seen on that welcoming slide, joins us next. He is the Secretary, Policy and Strategy Directorate for the Tinubu Shetima Campaign Council. Of course, that is with the APC. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
It's good to see you. Happy New Year.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Happy New Year. That's true.
Yeah. Been a minute, yeah? But one wonders, what kind of strategy are you possibly coming up with? Because, I mean, looking through this fuel scarcity, you can't get hold of the Naira, lots of confusion here and there. You need some strategy to convince the electorate, particularly the young people now, that your man is the man. Can you do it?
Yes, absolutely, we can do it, and I think we're doing it right now. I think what has happened the last couple of few days, or rather a week or so, especially with the shortage of the Naira, is we have been able to establish as a campaign and largely as a political party that this is not a policy that we agree with. This is not a policy that we're even aware of, and this is not a policy that was discussed with anyone, and at least, as far as I'm aware of, at the level of the party or the campaign or the hierarchy, so to speak, of people who are in government who are also party members. And I think a couple of few governors have either come here or have spoken in other places that they are absolutely unaware of it. It's not something that is imbibed or ingrained in our manifesto or our policy document. It's not something we've talked about at any place. It's not something that we even contemplated that, few days to election, that we would have it sort of, it wasn't much of the policy that was wrong or anything. I think it was the timing. It was the callousness of the implementation and the framework upon which it was forced on people that we simply befuddling. We just couldn't understand.
So are you disowning the policy which the president approved of?
We are disowning the time frame. We are absolutely walking away from it. It's not something that we agree with, and we will say it anyway.
Okay, I'm just trying to, because you talked about how you were not aware.
We're not aware.
Some people will say that the CBN is an autonomous, an independent body.
Absolutely.
And that the only person whom it was mandated to get an approval from, it's gotten approval from, and the president threw his full weight behind that particular policy. Are you saying that he was unaware of the implications of the policy?
No, I'm not saying that he's unaware of it. He probably might have been aware of some, but certainly if the president knew that it was going to result to probably even pockets of insurrection here and there, protests in so many places, a hard-hitting, harsh reality of what's going on right now in the hinterland and rural areas is absolutely unbelievable. Because you have a situation where 60, as far as I'm concerned, 60 to 70% of the Nigerian economy is informal. And these are people who are on a daily basis trade with cash. And this cash is not something they stash away for a minute or for a day or for a year or for No, these are people who are used to going out every day to be able to get how much they'll be able to spend on daily livelihood. And for all this, because there was two major components that was worrying a lot of people, that certainly worried me with the policy. The first component was that your money was going to be worthless after a period of time. So people were battling to make sure that their money was not worthless. Then the second part was their ability to get cash. I have paid my own staff who work in my farm in Kano, and they were not even able to access their own money. And these are people that eat what? They eat 500 naira or 300 naira food on a daily basis. They're not going to use ATM to be able to access 300 naira or 500 naira food. So it's, I don't know what to say, but for whatever it happened, I know the CBN is autonomous, but you see, this is my philosophy about it. And let me give you just a simple example. In 2016, in the United States, during the presidential election of 2016, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump, I think about 4 weeks to election, James Comey, the then head of FBI, came up with a statement that Hillary Clinton had some questions to answer about her email, using the private server for official correspondences. A lot of Democrats still today, including Hillary Clinton herself in her book, believe that that singular statement that Comey made was responsible for her loss in that election. Even though a week later, he came out to clear her, but it was too late, the damage was done. There are semi-autonomous or autonomous agencies of government that there are policies or actions that you will take in an electioneering season that is no longer just a policy because it hits up the polity. It is almost tantamount to election interference.
Is the moral of the story here that this policy is almost like hurting your party?
Not my party alone. This, because we are in government.
Yeah, his chances of winning.
So whatever, no, the chances of winning are still bright because we're working around it. But what I'm saying is that I will be foolish to sit down here and tell you that my party didn't take a hit as a result of this policy. That would be a lie. We took a hit, Chamberlain. We certainly did. I have been in Kano for the last 1 week. I know we took a hit. We're trying to recover now because people could see clearly that it was not a party policy. It was a policy that was probably formulated, as good as it might be, by a technocrat who came and convinced the president on the merits of it. And he has his own merits. There's no doubt about it. It has his own merits that convinced the president on the merits of it. And the president bought in on the merits of it. What we would have loved to see was a further discussion with probably Council of State, with probably the Federal Executive Council, with probably some hierarchy or the economic team to be able to have an input of everyone, because it is a policy that touches in every home.
Who's supposed to have done that?
I think the president ought to have done that. Absolutely.
It's interesting. I just heard you accuse the CBN of election interference.
Yeah, well, this policy, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not saying it's official, as far as I'm concerned, is tantamount to election interference, because whatever happens as a result of this policy, as far as I'm concerned, is election interference. Because it's an election season, you have taken a policy that directly hits at how emotional people feel towards an election. And because we have the fortune or misfortune in this case of being in government, we are directly being accused of that.
Well, some people would say that, your fortunes were already in jeopardy by the time at the beginning of this year, for instance, because by December last year, before even before the introduction of the policy or the start of the policy, a lot of Nigerians are already finding another commodity, which they normally would get, quite difficult to come by. Petrol. Petrol has been scarce for a while. Since the floods that happened in many parts of the country, yes, there was an explanation, but after the floods subsided, a number of people started wondering, hold on, the floods are over now. How come we still can't get petrol? What precisely is going on? There have been questions around the management of subsidy. There have been questions around how much debt the implementation of fuel subsidy, which was one of the things that this government, your party, the APC, disparaged how much debt it is plunging the country into. There have been questions also around, let me take them one issue at a time, but they're wondering why it is that of almost all of the policies which a number of Nigerians have raised concern about, one of them also being the petrol scarcity, how come it is that the currency scarcity has been the one that your party has been loudest on?
I think we've been loud on each one because, look, you talked about earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, it was not political season, it was not election time, right? Now, the issue, hold on.
According to who?
Hold on, it was not election time. The campaign started in October. You're talking about earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, that was last year, I'm assuming.
Late last year.
No.
Late last year, as far as January 2022, it was already election time as far as politicians were concerned.
Okay, but not officially. Election time is every time for a politician, but officially, election began in October. So let's get that clear.
Let's stay within the formal
Okay, so
window.
let's stay with that. That's not even the issue. That's not the point I'm trying to make here. The issue of fuel scarcity. I think a lot of people have gone through perennial fuel scarcity under administrations of the PDP, Obasanjo, Jonathan, and I think they appreciate President Muhammadu Buhari for being able to clear away, especially in December when, in the first few years of our administration, we've been able to clear up that. Of course, the floods hit. Of course, there's the Ukraine-Russia war, which affected global energy supply and the supply chain generally, and took a hit. And then we had issues. Everyone understood that. It was biting, no doubt about it. But people were able to access this petrol. Now the issues are compounding. People can take one bite at a time. And you can have an explanation like you rightly pointed out. You can have an explanation that people can relate to. You can say it's the floods, like you mentioned. People can relate to that because it is actually something, it's factual. You can say Ukraine-Russia war affected global supply. People can relate to that. But when you bring out a policy that is unforced, absolutely unforced, absolutely within your control, it was not outside your control. Supply of energy could be outside your control. You're in an OPEC, you're in an organization, it has to be sold, it has to be brought in. There are a lot of issues going around. So there are a lot of multiple players involved. That if one has a problem, you can have a problem. So people understand that. People are not as dumb as people think they are. They understand that. But when you have a policy that is absolutely unforced, on you, on your own, you just brought it on and forced it down on the people, then people will blame you because they understand that it is perfectly within your control to do or not to do that. It was not even the policy that hurts the most. It was the insistence, the callous insistence that it has to stop at a particular point in time, or people will lose their wealth, or you cannot transact.
But Ismail,
that's the issue.
Now, when do you accuse the CBN of coming up with this policy?
I'm not accusing. The CBN did it on their own.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't accuse them.
Now, the thing is, the president is on tape, excuse me, to have said there will be no going back on that policy.
Yes.
Are you then saying this is an own goal? He's vicariously liable?
No, the president said there was no going back. I told you based on the merits of the decision, the reasons that was given to him.
The box stops at his table.
Absolutely. And he has to take responsibility, and he's taken it. It has been shifted. And now I think there's a Council of State meeting, Council of State. That's the whole Council. Did the
president announce?
There's a Council of State meeting today, which a decision will be made. Governors went to meet him. They have appealed to him that, look, we need to shift this. And the president is looking at the merits and the demerits of that argument. But let me tell you where my issue is.
Yeah.
Every leader, every president is presented with a decision to make, right? What will be worrying is when a so-called expert or somebody who is supposed to know, and I mean the CBN is being run by someone who was in retail banking before he became a CBN governor. So it is assumed that he understands the banking infrastructure in this country, how far it has gone, where it is, what the limitations are. That is the expectation. right? And then you bring the merits of it. And like I said, nobody can argue that cashless policy does not have its own merits. It has a lot of merits. You know, there's too much money in circulation. That is true. There's a lot of counterfeit. That is true. There are a lot of criminals stashing away a lot of funds. That is true. There are a lot of things that we cannot trace. But I thought, as a technocrat, if you have your team together, there should be, if the target is politicians or kidnappers that have taken ransom or all kinds of people that have stashed a lot of money illegally, if that is the target, I think the government would have been able or should have been able to put different methods of getting to these people to make sure that they put their money in banks. For example, you can simply say any BDC that takes cash other than transfer will have its license seized. So, which means BDCs will not take cash, so they will not give you dollars in exchange. You would have to make transfers, so you'll be able to trace that transfer. You can say that no property would be bought either in Lagos, Kaduna, Kano, Abuja, Port Harcourt, or any of the major areas. No property would be bought or sold. There must be deed of sale of that property. It must be registered. It must be by transfer. It cannot be by cash. So people cannot do money laundering through buying properties or estates or plots of land. There are many rules and regulations that you can put in place to be able to trace how much people have either in their homes or in their cash. We've already have a whistleblower policy where if you have a lot of money, you can report people, and some people have been caught, and some monies have been reported. People have gotten their 10% or 15%, whatever it is that government promised. I mean, the policy is good, but the time frame, not only the time frame now, the season we're in, we knew exactly what we were doing. This is not an accident.
You know,
this is very obvious.
The president has attended rallies in support of the APC presidential candidate.
Absolutely.
The most recent one, I mean, we just saw
Sokoto yesterday, yes.
And he, right there, could have seen or gotten fillers, even way before there, of what is going on about this policy. As you say, assuming he was misled by so-called professionals, as you were in your words. Just a minute. But why did he then have to wait for the governors to come and meet him and beg him and appeal to him?
Let me tell you something about President Buhari. He doesn't use political platforms or party platforms, so to speak, or partisan platforms, so to speak, to deal with national issues.
Not to deal with it. He could have gleaned intelligence. He's a top military man. He's been there before.
He is well informed now. Yeah. And like I said, they are going to have meetings, and I'm sure he's having multiple meetings with his team, with his economic team, with his financial team, with the Council of State, you know, to be able to get input from everyone so that he'll be able to advise CBN accordingly. And let's not forget, he can only advise CBN. CBN has gotten approval. The only thing now left for the president.
But CBN couldn't have come up with this policy without the president signing off on it.
No, that's what I'm saying. Now, because it has already been signed off, now he can advise the CBN to move it, which we hope that would happen. There's a Supreme Court judgment. I think it's neither here nor there. I think there's an argument whether or not that judgment would suffice. But what it has done primarily for us in the campaign is to be able to say clearly that these three governors, who are all APC governors, have clearly demonstrated that we are not in sync with this policy. And I think the president gets nobody's divided.
Division.
That is not a division. The president gets it now, but he has to take a decision now properly, so that he's no longer going to advise the CBN.
He's going to direct the CBN, not advise the CBN.
No, that's what I'm saying. He has to take a decision. He has to make a decision before the advice or not advice go on.
It's interesting because the AGF, even though he says that they will be obeying the Supreme Court, Supreme Court's order, he's still challenging. They're going to be appealing
I think the AGF is not necessarily challenging because of the policy. It's challenging because of the procedural manner or the future importance of a federal government taking its own decision.
But it's challenging nonetheless.
No, hold on. You see, I think what he is doing, I haven't spoken to him, he hasn't told me his reasons, but as a lawyer I can infer that The reason why he has to challenge it is because usually you use the Supreme Court as a court of first and only instance if there is an issue between the state and the federal government. The issue of monies and monetary policy is within the exclusive legislative list, which is the exclusive purview of the federal government. He doesn't think that there is a case between the federal government and the state government for the Supreme Court to assume jurisdiction to make an order of such nature. So, what he's basically trying to do, if the federal government lets it slide, I think, that's his thinking, if the federal government lets it slide, then every other policy of federal government in the future can be challenged by any state, even if it doesn't concern them, and go straight to the Supreme Court because a precedent has been laid. So he has to challenge it based on that procedure. Not because, I'm sure, not because he disagrees with the position of the state governors, for example, that this policy should be suspended.
It's a very tricky situation to be in, especially when you look at the fact that, there have been allegations that there are certain people within the villa that do not exactly want the candidacy of your, presidential candidate. They do not want him to succeed at the polls. This was something that was said by no less than one of the governors who has gone to court. So sometimes when you see this, it's very difficult not to interpret it politically as well.
Well, I'm not in the speculative business. If the governor, I'm sure he has his intelligence. He knows the people he's talking about. I don't. I am not in a position to say one thing or another. But what I heard him also say is that some of these people, or these people that he is talking about, are not members of the party. So really, the party is not divided.
Sounds like you prefer an outright suspension of the policy and not a modification.
No, it can be modification, it can be extended. But my problem is, even if it is extended now, do we get the cash back? If 2.2 trillion naira has 2.7 trillion naira, so to speak, by the report, has been taken out of the economy, we're not going to get it back in the next few days. We're not going to get it back in the next 1 month. We're not going to get it back in the next 3, 4, 5 months, probably. Probably the aim is not even to get that much amount of money back. Maybe the aim was to go cashless. Maybe that is all true. But what we have right now is we have a serious emergency in our hands where people cannot cash their money and they are not able to take their children to school. They are not able to pay for transportation. They are not able to cash. So these are serious national emergencies, and I'm glad the president called Council of State to be able to resolve it.
All right, we'll wait to see what happens in that regard. But our colleagues in Lagos have got questions for you. Go ahead, guys.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Mr. Ahmed, it's good to see you again. The first question that I want to ask is, you've spoken around it, but maybe we should drill down a little bit. There are those who would look at this issue that you're discussing in a different light, in the light that this is an APC federal government. The ease with which some, as Governor El-Rufai put it, fifth columnists are able to get around to the president to get him to do something that, as you said, a number of people probably didn't think through, which has inflicted, as you have also said, a lot of pains and hardship on people, is a little troubling. The ease with which they were able to get the president to agree to it is a little troubling. So if this could happen now under an APC government, what's to say that worse things will not happen, such that people are able to access the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and get that president to agree to inflict pains on Nigerians?
First of all, I did not say I agree or not agree. I didn't confirm or deny anything about any fifth columnist. I don't know. As far as I'm concerned, Ismail Ahmad, the only fifth columnist I identify is the CBN. That's the only fifth columnist, if there's anything like that, if you can call it with that nomenclature. Because as far as I'm concerned, the CBN is run by thoroughbred professionals. They went to the president, they gave him the merits and the demerits of such a policy, which I said has a lot of merits, and the president signed off on it. But now it has come home to roost because it is biting hard. And it has insisted, the CBN somehow has insisted that it's going to stick to this time frame regardless of the situation. As far as I'm concerned, so I don't know about the ease upon which to get the president, but let me speak generally about leaders and people around them and stuff like that. There's no leader who is immune to people who are around him who would whisper one or two things to him. I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm not even sure, as at the time the CBN governor met the president, there was anyone there or anyone even knew about it. I don't know. I don't know if that has happened. I don't know. All I know is that CBN took a policy to the president, showed him the merits and demerits of it. Based on the merits of it, the president signed off. This is not a policy that we're happy with, and we have conveyed that to the president absolutely loud and clear, and I think he's taking steps to make sure that he consults more and be able to reconsider. And I think it's human. It's absolutely human to make a decision. And like some of the leaders of the past have said, I think it's Abraham Lincoln or something, he said, you know, it is absolutely unforgivable when you don't take a decision. But it is forgivable when you take a wrong decision or you make a mistake and you look at it and you review it again and you take another step. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What is absolutely unforgivable is indecision. And in this case, we have made it very clear to the president, not because of only election, but because of the hardship that people are in. And of course, it's going to affect, we have taken a hit. Thank God we are recovering from it. We are going to go ahead in this election and we're going to win it. I'm absolutely certain of it. But regardless, we've taken a hit. And most importantly, let me say this, please. And I think it's very important that I say this. Most importantly, this is the president, Muhammadu Buhari, that has built a reputation from 1962 when he joined the army. He fought a war at 25. He became a governor at 33. He became a head of state at 41. He joined politics at 60. He was elected president at 72 after 3 attempts. And he has built a reputation of integrity and love for the masses. And that is why he was so loved that repeatedly from 2003 to 2015, he has been, and 2019, so to speak, he has been repeatedly voted by the overwhelming majority of the downtrodden and people at the bottom of the pyramid. And in his administration, I'm a living witness because I was in charge of one of the policies that he implemented directly. And I know how much there's never been a time, at any time in the history of this country, that people at the grassroots have received funding and have received help from a government like they have under Muhammadu Buhari. So he has built a wonderful reputation. He just turned 80 in December. No one, not Ashwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, not me, not Malam Nasir El-Rufai, or any of the members of this party would want to see such a beautiful reputation that has been built over the course of 60 years to be remembered as a person who gave us as a legacy this kind of hardship. That is one of our worry. For me personally, that I have been with the president for the last 16 years, that I've followed him through and through. You know, even before he started calling my name, till the day he started calling my name, I knew me very well, and I've started working for him. This is what worries me. I don't want to see this president have a legacy, and people would remember him as the president who walked away when Nigerians were crying and in absolute hardship. After 60 years of building a wonderful reputation and a reputation of integrity, and a person who has absolutely no material interest in life other than to give what he has gotten back to the masses. And I think he has done that in 7.5 years. So we will not allow, or will not keep quiet, even if this goes through. We will not keep quiet when people who have no idea how this man has built this reputation for such a long time would come with a policy and just cover it under the guise of all the merits that it has to give Nigerians this bye-bye portion to Nigerians. That's what is unacceptable to some of us who are very close to the president.
Mr. Ismail, following up on my colleague's concern about the ease with which some members of the party or government would access the president and present policies to him, even though you make your position clear that this is not a party policy, that it's a policy of some technocrats. But your position is only slightly different from what other party members have presented on our program in reference to the Kaduna State's position, and yet another who say it's someone at the villa who is taking advantage of their influence with the president. What party members are unmindful of, don't you think, is presenting the independence and strength of character of the president as being somewhat questionable, so to speak, in taking decisions regardless of how well they were able to sell the policy to him or not. Aren't you concerned about that as well? And how is the party managing it?
I told you clearly. I told you that we are proud of this president, no doubt about it. And I told you that one of our worries is the legacy that he will be leaving with. The books I have read on leadership and politics, the things I have seen on leadership and politics have taught me that if you have a 5-year tenure, 8-year tenure, 10-year tenure, 4-year tenure, whatever it is that you have, that of all the good things you would do in a country, it is the last 1 year of your administration that probably people would remember more. President Babangida, as head of state from 1985 to 1991, 1993, has done a lot of infrastructural development in this country. Third Mainland Bridge, the Kano-Abuja first dual carriageway. He did a lot of things, but what is he remembered for largely today? Annulment of June 12, for example. President Obasanjo, of all his misgivings, you could say he has had his own serious developments as a president as well. But what is he remembered largely for today? He tried to get third term. So the last year of an administration, the last year of a president or leader's term in office is always the most significant. So some of us that are worried about this policy are not necessarily, yes, election is a serious thing to consider, but it's also the reputation of this president, the legacy, what people would remember him for, that is worrying us. And we think he has a strong character. He has taken so many right decisions. He has done so many right things in the last 7.5 years. So if we disagree with this, and which is okay, which is absolutely okay. In every politics, in every democracy, in every family, it's okay to have disagreements about certain policies. In fact, it is encouraged. What is not acceptable is for that to degenerate into a conflict. That's what is never going to happen. This president is with us on all fours. We have made it clear to him that this is a policy that hurts people the most at the grassroots. And the people that are being targeted are not necessarily as hurt as the people who are hurting downground. And this is a people's party. APC is a progressive people's party who considers people more at the bottom than at the top. And these are the people who are hurting and who are crying. And if they are crying to us, we'll cry to the president, and the president will reconsider. I'm sure he would. I'm hoping that today, after the Council of State meeting, we'll have good news about this.
And I wonder, if all of the implications were, well thought out ahead of time before execution began. Speaking of which, this is why little wonder where we are at the moment, because I noted that you talked about the Supreme Court judgment, that it's neither here nor there, and you also presented the decision to challenge the Supreme Court ruling by the Attorney General of the Federation as important, such that other policies of this government would not just be challenged in the future. In relation to that, are you mindful of the principle of separation of powers in this case? Are you saying that the wisdom of the executive should be taking wholesale in the future, regardless of the implications?
No, that's absolutely not what I'm saying. I don't know if you are listening to me quite all right. I'm just saying that it is the job of the judiciary, of course, to interpret the laws that have been passed by National Assembly. But the Supreme Court, procedurally, is usually the court of first instance in a matter of direct interpretation of a constitutional provision. And I said it, I confess that I didn't know if that was why the Attorney General did what he did. I'm just inferring as a lawyer that may be the reason why he was challenged by the federal government, not necessarily because the federal government still insists on keeping the deadline, but it has to be, a standard has to be set that if there are issues that have been decided by federal government or the executive branch, so to speak, and it is being challenged by another branch of government or another arm of government or another tier of government, that the federal government feels as if it has no right to do so, then it can go back to the appeal court and say, hey, you know, you don't have jurisdiction because this is not a matter of a case between the federal government and the state government, and it's not a matter of case of direct constitutional interpretation. It is a matter of an interpretation of a CBN Act, of course, an act which was passed by the National Assembly, but it was not a conflict between the state and the federal. That is my assumption. I'm not saying that it was a discussion I had with the Attorney General or anything. I'm not claiming to know that.
All right, we need to go, but if you can do this in 60 seconds or less, the PDP say that Atiku Abubakar, their candidate, is offering 60% of the positions for young people. He wants to spend $10 billion to empower young people. What is your party going to offer them?
You know, sometimes some people, their mouths run rather faster than their minds. And I have, if you look at our manifesto, unfortunately, we haven't discussed that, which is my expertise in this campaign. If you look at what we have promised and what we have clearly stated out that we are going to do for young people, it's not just promissory notes. It's not just all these platitudes, you know, speeches that we do, 60%, 30%, all those affirmative things that that people like to call as punchlines in election campaigns. But we are serious about it. We're serious about education. We're serious about student loans. We are well aware that schools are closing. And then we look at how many people are being churned out from tertiary education and whether or not government can actually fund tertiary education in a sustainable manner. And then we're looking for alternatives, and we're giving reasons and methods on which alternative people can actually go to school. We're talking about actual development of skills, of people, of young people to be able to get jobs and hold themselves up by their bootstraps and be able to move from point A to point B. So and that has been clearly demonstrated
here's what
by Bola Ahmed Tinubu when he was in Lagos.
We will revisit the, we'll have a lot more deeper look at the policy, the strategy, the manifesto of your party at another date, that we'll examine that alongside several other parties, probably as we inch towards the big election date as it stands today.
And if we don't meet, you can congratulate me in advance.
Well, I'm just here to do my job as best as I can. Ismail Ahmed is the Secretary, Policy and Strategy Directorate of the Tinubu Shetima Campaign Organization, Campaign Council. Thank you for coming on. All the best.
Thank you so much for having me, Chamberlain.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us.
The Labour Party presidential candidate, his wife, the vice presidential candidate and his wife, the FCT senatorial and House of Reps candidates, and members of the national executive of the party are at the old parade ground to seek the votes of residents of the nation's capital.
Capacity, compassion,
Mr. Obi tells the people that he and his running mate have all it takes to turn around the country.
We have high level of youth unemployment. We will employ our youth. We will make them productive. We have vast land in the north where our youth will be engaged and they will be productive. Nigeria will feed itself. Nigeria will be a great nation again. We don't want the excuses again. That is what Daddy and I are offering you. Join us. Support us to fight to build a new Nigeria.
The vice presidential candidate and the national chairman of the party urged Nigerians not to fall for the antics of the other parties.
Anybody who stands in front of you to tell you that Nigerian security has improved, he does not mean well for Nigeria. The people who are going around Nigeria now to say that they have improved your economy, while you pass long queues at the ATMs and in the filling stations, while you and your loved ones are scared at night in your houses, while you cannot travel in your own country, those people do not mean well for you.
Casting your votes, remain there till it is counted. You know, these people we are fighting, they are dubious. You can see their desperation. They are very, very desperate. And because of that desperation, we must be ready to checkmate them. And the only way we can checkmate them is for us to vote, make sure it is counted, and defend your vote.
The Federal Capital Territory has long been a stronghold of the People's Democratic Party, and the Labour Party is hoping to make inroads into the seat of power. Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
Welcome back to the 2023 verdict, and you're watching us live from Nigeria, wherever you are in any part of the world. As you've seen in that welcoming slide, the Director General of Obi Dati Campaign Council joins us next, Mr. Aki Oshutokun. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning, Chambale.
How is this campaign going on now?
Too.
Of course. How is it going at the moment? Because I know that the team has arrived Lagos ahead of the mega rally as you target for Saturday morning.
Well, it's going on well. As well, we wish it could have gone better, but it's going on relatively well. And the unique thing about this season is that the choices before the electorate have never been sharper. It's like what we have in Nigeria today is like a contrast of we are hearing the sound of a death throw, and you are hearing the sound of a bat pang, right? So it's left for Nigeria to choose either. You can choose the death throws in which Nigeria go into extinction, or you can choose the birth of a new baby, which our presidential ticket comprises of. The other two tickets started out by being a threat to the national unity and integration of Nigeria. And let us keep that in mind. What brought Nigeria to where we are today is that sort of fundamental political mismanagement against the background of what this country has witnessed in the past 7 years. Now you have a ticket that negates the very principle on which stability, unity is predicated. And I'm talking about the PDP ticket. An arrangement there was a prior arrangement of power rotation between the North and South, whose main objective is national unity. And then you now have a candidate deliberately going against that. What does that represent? So that ticket is starting out being a threat, to the peace and stability of Nigeria. The other one, again, against the background of what we have witnessed in the clashes, cleavages all over Nigeria in the past 7 years. How can a presidential ticket now go for the same faith ticket, Muslim ticket? Look, how do you want the Christians to feel? I mean, it is not, party elections are not supposed to be predicated on religion. But fair is fair. Nigerians, we have to acknowledge our diversity, which should be something good for us. Unity in diversity. But recognize that diversity in any decision you want to present, in any decision you want to take. You don't then, deep full, what is wrong with that diversity.
So, what can you say, or what would you say is your party's path to victory? Because, are you going to rely on young people who will not all vote for your party, or undecided voters who can decide on that day to vote for other people? Because, election day dynamics are completely different.
Listen, Chamberlain, the basis for the choice of which ticket you are going to support is starker than that. Right? And I've told you, it's like a scripture that says this, that, look, my father laid a heavy yoke on you, but I will lay even more heavier yoke on you. My father scourged you with whips, I will scourge you with scorpion. That is the choice. What we are experiencing today, the currency crisis, the policy crisis, and the fuel scarcity, a government party is responsible for it. You expect an electorate. It's like God reminding you of the reasons, telling you that this is not the way to go.
Mr. Oshutoko, I find it interesting, excuse me, that you're using, when you talk about the other tickets, you talk about how they negate certain things and the threats to Nigeria's unity. Interestingly, your party has been sure to tick all of those political boxes. For instance, you have the candidacy, you have that of the presidential candidates from the south of the country, in fact, more importantly, southeast of the country, and you have a northern vice presidential candidate, and both of them are from separate religions. But your candidate has been very clear on why people should vote for him. He said that he doesn't even want us to look at those things. He wants to be elected strictly on merit. If that is the campaign that your candidate is running, shouldn't that be the basis upon which all the other candidates are assessed, regardless of where they're from or what religion, they profess?
The short answer to what you are saying is that those who came up with the convention of north-south rotation, that they are mindless, that they don't know what they are doing.
Is that what your candidate means when he says don't look at that?
I wouldn't lay emphasis, if I were in his position. I will not lay emphasis on that. It is those of us, it is my job, for instance, to give all the ramifications of this election to the electorate. What he says is as follows, right? It's right to be an Igbo man. He's proud. He's proud to be a Southeasterner, but he's even more proud to be a Nigerian. Now look, I'm a student of political science. There is a reason you have federal constitution. You have heard of the principle of federal character. All these things are predicated on the appreciation of our unity in diversity. If you don't want to follow that, if you say it is irrelevant, you might as well, those even picking there, you might as well pick your own image yourself from the same constituency, if that is the case. In his own case, there is no need for him to dwell on that. Right? He is competent in his own right. The idea that it comes from the southeast is a bonus. It reinforces, you got to have a country first before you can have a president or good governance. The truth of, as I said, is what we study. The group, the outstanding zone that you feel that has the right, that is entitled to feel more alienated from Nigeria after this election is the southeast. Others, well, maybe the north central, because of the Muslim thing. Look, alienation, the plurality of you just cannot, but it is there. You don't want to dwell, but when a ticket bank comes up deliberately to aggravate the problem that is on ground, deliberately, not inadvertent, there's no way. But as I said, I don't expect him to dwell on it. But it is left for those of us.
Can we learn Nigerian politics and political science in universities here?
Of course.
We can?
We can what?
We can learn it. The politics you play in Nigeria, we can learn it in school, in Nigerian schools here?
Of course.
Oh,
listen, let me tell you something. There is something that one of the things that excited me when I was called by President Obasanjo to come and lead his campaign in 2002. But look, I studied political science. There is a theory, there is a praxis. Right? When you study political science, right, I think the thing that can excite you the most is to be given the opportunity of translating theory to practice, to reality. Okay. You know? So that is, there are papers, books being written on Nigeria as we speak.
Okay, I'll let my colleagues in Lagos translate whatever they want. They have the floor now. Go ahead, guys.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. Well, I'm going to stick with that for a little bit. Mr. Oshutoko, it'll be nice to find out exactly how that translation is going to be done, because you began by talking about some sentiments that have taken the forefront of these campaigns, as opposed to the realities, the practicalities, the agendas, the issues that people should be talking about. I'm wondering how you think we can translate the sentiments in political science, or rather, maybe I should be more specific like Jimmy, in Nigeria's political science to the practicality of governance, because it would seem like sentiments have taken a lot more, always seem to take a lot more of our time in the elections as opposed to the functions, the issues that people, politicians in particular, need to pay attention to.
Well, you know, Nigeria, first and foremost, was given independence, was constituted on the basis of recognizing the reality of our diversity. It is the reason why we have a federal constitution. All these things just didn't come by. It's a reasoned approach to how Nigeria can endure as a polity and stability. The reason we have federal constitution, I mean, even if you want to go back, which is deeper, you know, that of region is more. It's almost you know, a regionalist constitution. So the constitution itself, right, is a reflection of what I've been saying. It is not me. Then it goes on, right, to now tell you to prescribe in the constitution how you can apply the theories into practice. That is where you have federal character, federal principle, and things like that, so that you have that reflection of a big tent, a big family cohabiting together. Right? In Nigeria, why didn't those who framed the constitution, look, the four parties that more or less, you know, fostered the independent constitution, I don't think anybody knows Nigeria than those four entities. One is the British government, itself, the colonial government. Second are the, you know, the first line of the nationalists, Ahmadu Bello, Azikiwe, and Awolowo. Right? Those are the four people that are most responsible for the constitution, for the independence constitution. And look at that constitution. What that constitution tells you is precisely what I've been saying all along.
Well, Mr. Chitoko,
look, this is a country that is diverse. Of course, you can use the negative factors of saying that they are disunited or what, but diversity is a neutral verb. This is a country that is diverse culturally, politically, socially. Now, if you want that country to endure, you have to reflect that diversity in the grand norm, in the constitution you are prescribing for that country that will ensure its stability, its peace and progress. All these questions that you are asking, you are suggesting as if the federalism was just in vain, that there was no context, you know, that suggests or recommends that we need to have stability. And as I said, look, we don't need to go that far. The crisis we are in, where did it arise? It is political mismanagement of the president.
Just one moment, Mr. Shintokun.
This is precisely what I'm telling you.
My apologies. Just to stick with the conversation around that diversity, that diversity that you're speaking to, I don't think there is any argument about our diversity. Every nation would say, I mean, there is one measure of diversity or the other, and you're speaking to those issues as well. However, it is not a question of the diversities here that I'm asking, but the question of the sentiments that influence decisions as opposed to the peculiar challenges that confront the people clustered in those diversities that you're talking about. We all have one common identity as Nigeria. We all have one common identity as a federal republic. But then the issues that we deal with, economic challenges, political challenges, social challenges, educational challenges, health challenges, they are all the same. They do not have colors, they don't have sentiments, they don't have religions. They are the reality of Nigerians. My question is around how we are unable to focus political campaigns generally on these things, but rather pander to sentiments.
You quite understand the point I was making. Not at all. First and foremost, not all societies are like Nigeria. The constitution we have is specifically prescribed, you know, by our diversity. Second is that I'm sure you must have heard this aphorism that Give us first the kingdom of the political kingdom, and all others will follow. There is no way you can get your constitution wrong and hope to build you can't build something on nothing. That is where you are getting it wrong. The constitution, the federalism that we are supposed to be practicing is the basis on which the Nigerian governance in Nigeria will be effective and efficient. It is the reason why the golden phase of Nigeria's development is the First Republic, especially as typified by the near excellence of those regions. Right? So I don't know what you are talking about. Everybody has you are misunderstanding the problem I'm saying. Now you will have asked you add about restructuring or no restructuring, restoration back to federalism. That is the overarching subject. It is a systemic crisis we are in. That if you don't get it right, all other you can't build something on nothing. The security crisis we face in Nigeria today, almost all the parties have agreed, in large extent attributable to the structure of the police force or security forces that we have today. It's not a question about Agbado or engineering or what have you. Right? The federal government especially has been standing in the way of the progress of the constituent units. Right? When they said they take this over, you have another over concentration of power at the center. It's why some people call the president of Nigeria as the strongest, most powerful president in the world. You over concentrate powers at the center, and you enfeeble the component unit, right? That is not how Nigeria. There's no way Nigeria can survive. That's not the template. So you've got to address that before you go to health challenges, infrastructure challenges. There is a basis on which those ones are predisposed to failure. It is called dysfunction. Nigeria is not supposed to be governed the way it is being governed today. And every day we keep on proving that fact. Why is education or whatever it is in shambles? The federal government accumulates power onto itself indiscriminately. Therefore, you have all the governors of these states living more in Abuja than their own state. They're complete, unlike what the Constitution says, the original one, they have become completely dependent on the center. And I heard something that people were celebrating that the government is proposing autonomy of local government. Now, this is part of the problems that we have had. The federal government has no business with local government.
And those are the challenges.
It presupposes that 2 tiers of government, not 3 tiers.
And Mr. Shotoku, those are the challenges. Those are the challenges that you seek to address should your party become the ruling party in 2023. That's after the handover. Still on the matter of diversity, I wonder if your party has improved on its strategy, which is what I want you to speak to. At the height of the attention given your candidate when he became the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, the concern was how he was going to win northern votes, and many were disappointed that alliance with the NNPP was unable to materialize. Has anything improved from that point, especially now when political watchers are beginning to acknowledge that there's a possibility that the presidential vote may head into a second round after February the 25th? So what are the plans that your party has put in place to surmount this challenge?
I don't quite get the challenge you are talking about.
The concern about how your presidential candidate is going to surmount votes from the north, given the diversity of the country.
Addressing them by presenting himself, as superior to the other choices they have. Look, and which is in the open. Which is obvious enough anyway. I don't see any word. I don't want people may have their peculiarities, but I don't see how, objectively speaking, how a country, how an electorate can choose the candidate, the PDP and APC tickets over what we have in Nigeria today. As I said, you see, these are threats in the first place. Ab initio, they constitute themselves into threat to the national unity. So, I mean, there is nobody, and they're proving it over and over again in terms of the competence, in terms of energy, in terms of a ticket that speaks to the unity and stability of Nigeria. There should be no basis for people not to have a clear choice. But you have a community, a politics that is ridden with what we call dysfunction. The dysfunction of ethno-regional cleavages, in which people choose ethnic identity over what is really good for them in terms of governance. But as I said, that he has been addressing himself to, he has a record, to back it up. And people have seen what he is capable of achieving, as president. You see, we can even, contrast, the appearance of himself at the Chatham House invitation and that of the APC. That's one of we can draw the contrast. That which one of them is ready or more suitable, for what is happening. Look, Nigeria is in an existential crisis and we're at an inflection point. The good thing about Nigeria today is that...
Do you acknowledge the fact that elections are not won at Chatham House, they're not won on platforms such as this? Elections are won at the polling units. Let's break it down. How will your candidates win votes in core northern areas like Kano, like Katsina, like Sokoto? So what's the appeal that your candidate is taking to these areas such that he can harvest votes from these areas?
Then either you misunderstand or don't understand what I said. I'm telling you about where is areas, places where he has displayed superior competence and capability. And then, look, I don't expect you to put emphasis on whether is going to win or lose. Right? It's better to lose doing the right thing than to win doing the wrong thing. I don't know your own disposition to life. That is my own disposition. I'm not going to lay emphasis on, this is not the place to start saying you will win this, you will win that. He has a fighting chance. Those who contended or conducted polls have endorsed, told us the positions that he has. If he has challenges on account of political dysfunction within the country, he's doing his best, or we are doing our best to address it. But nobody is going. I'm not going to be obsessed about what even if it is what is wrong to do. I'm obsessed with winning, and that's why you said that politicians look forward to the next election. Statesmen look to the next generation. So we are not going, nobody is, the kind of cynicism inherent in the question you are making is what has taken Nigeria to this state.
So will your candidate get 25% in 24 states, or are you joining others to acknowledge that the presidential election will go into a second round?
I don't know what is going to happen. I can't see. We are working towards winning the majority votes and getting the required 25% in 2/3 of the Nigerian state. But by the way, as I said, it's only God. I'm not a seer, so I will not be able to see whether that will happen or whether there will be a runoff.
It'll be interesting to see eventually what happens on the 25th of February. But post 25th of February, after the winners have been, or winner, because there's only one winner. We hope that at the end of the day, the people of Nigeria will be the ones that ultimately win, that it is truly their own choice that will be reflected on the 25th of February. But I'm looking here at a tweet, and you do know that your supporters, I mean, a lot of them express themselves using the social media handles. I'm looking at this tweet from Cheta, and he says, regardless of who wins I think he must have made this tweet a few days ago. He says, regardless of who wins in 18 days, Nigeria's next president will be undermined from various quarters from day one and will preside over a period of great social unrest. Says Nigeria's next president is likely to be the most hated man in the country's history. And I imagine that this is predicated on the difficulty, on the enormous challenges before us. There are no easy answers to the questions before us. What are some of the answers that your candidate is proffering to some of the very uneasy questions and some of the very uneasy challenges that lie ahead?
Well, you know, the most important thing really is signaling. You know, the signal that people get when a certain person is elected. President Muhammadu Buhari, let us be fair to him. When he was elected and started, people, you saw people in the Federal Secretariat, they were getting to the office at 7:30 a.m. Yeah, because he had that kind of reputation. And of course, I expect a similar thing that will happen here. If Peter Obi wins, then everybody are optimistic about the future of the country. And people will be ready to make sacrifices to, you know. Look, it's not the problems that matter. You know, it is your ability to grapple with that problem or crisis that matters. No society, you know, challenges and things are routine in human society. That is not, at the end of the day, that's not what matters. It's that capacity. Now look at Japan and all these countries that were devastated during the Second War. They are all now, and Japan, Germany, Japan, they are probably ahead of most of the other West countries in terms of modernity and technology and things like that. So the tweet you just read is right on the spot, that the task, the best Nigerian president has his task cut out for him. Yeah. They are so overwhelming that he's going to need somebody of the energy of Peter Obi and the running mate, Dati, to rise up to the field. But let me finish. Yeah. But they are winning. It's going to excite the youth a lot. They are going to be excited by it and will be prepared to make the necessary sacrifice. But excitement and reality are two different things. For instance, if they are so excited, assuming he wins, they will get the impression that things will be really good along the way. But we both know, for instance, the Naira is not going to go back to 100 Naira with whoever wins. The economy will go back to what it was 10 years ago with whoever wins. Do you think they have that understanding that that is really the case? Of course. I mean, you're just repeating what that guy has said. You know, that the problems are they are overwhelming. There's no doubt about that. And there is a likelihood that whoever imagines the poster is going to be unpopular in the short term, you know, because of what the steps you would need to take, right, to normalize the system. For instance, I expect the next president, even our own candidate, to remove fuel subsidy on the very day of week of month of coming to power. Now you realize, you know how people are going to react to it, you know, regardless of popularity in the short term. Whoever imagines the president, will be assuming that he has that vision and competence, will be compelled to take certain steps, you know, that initially will prove painful, but it is in the long-term interest of the country. The good thing is that you can see have his political capital. A newly elected president probably has 2-3 months of honeymoon, right, which he can exploit. You know, the political capital, he can use that, right, to, you know, to set in motion the momentum of governance. Even though they all say the same thing, that everyone who's contested always mean well, but at the end of the day, it becomes what it is. But we thank you for coming on. Mr. Akin Oshotoko is the Director General for the Obi Dati Campaign Council of the Labour Party. We wish you all the best. Thank you very much. Nice to see you again. Thank you. Same here. So let's see if we do have some messages coming through now. Do we? Okay, yeah. Yes, we do. I can see some. This is the first tweet coming through from Festus. Festus says, well, look,
our young people have the opportunity to shake up our politics for good in this year's elections, and many of them have collected their PVCs. Okay, good to see that you know that. They must now walk the talk by coming out to vote on election day. Time they make a difference in our democracy. Hashtag 2023 verdict. Way to go, Festus.
Well, thank God you're not calling him Felix today. Olagunju.
You mean my man Felix? Oh, he's listening.
Well, he is. Olagunju Oladele says CBN stated that the deadline for the old notes is February the 10th, 2023, and further stated that we have a grace period of 7 days to deposit old notes at the bank in compliance with sections 20, subsection 3 and 22 of the CBN Act. However, I hope it is extended because new notes are scarce.
Well, we can't say that enough. Professor Imonoka Enakina says Nigerian youths must approach incoming election dispassionately, be circumspect of all the candidates, do a due diligence, and come out with informed opinions on who they choose as next president of a detribalized Nigeria with capacity and capability to govern.
Well, I'm pretty sure that there are so many other messages down our Twitter handle as well as on YouTube, and you can consume as many of them as you want. And that's the part of our show today. Thank you so much for the privilege of being a part of your morning. I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Maupe.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Maupe Ogun-Yusuf. Thank you.
I'm Chamberlain, and so have a very good weekend.
And Maupe is looking excellent in red and white. Mr. Yusuf is doing a good job. I don't want to get a reprimand. I'm Bukola Samuel Wemimo.